elected official.
This is a special use permit for the church.
Oh, the one that we approved last time.
Yeah.
This was not here.
I think he bought it later.
Okay, sorry about that. What, you know what, this says opened by addressee only, there's no addressee on it.
Yeah, it is. Just not looking. Oh, that's not yours.
Oh, mine was over here.
Yours is right here, under your, it's under the agenda. See, right here.
I was looking everywhere else, sorry. But I didn't want to make a mistake and open if it wasn't mine, so
Right?
I appreciate your guidance and support.
I don't know if you want to sign this.
Pen doesn't work. Can I keep this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
We'll get started and do all the morning stuff.
Okay, perfect.
This is the amended agenda.
No, our amended is in here. This particular item had some changes.
Okay. Ready to go, I think.
Good morning, everybody. It's 9:07 a.m. on July 12th, 2022. This morning, our invocation will be given by Pastor Doug Cowan from Cornerstone Baptist Church. Morning, Pastor Cowan.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, commissioners. Lord, thank you so much for giving these men and women the opportunity this morning to help our community. And Lord, I pray that you'd help them and give them wisdom. And Lord, I'm thankful that we live in a community where, Lord, we're led by those with a heart of servitude and not in a land of kings or oppression, Lord, but rather men and women who want to serve the people of the land. And Lord, I pray that you'd give them great wisdom this morning and help them to see perhaps as they make decisions, help them to see the whole picture. Lord, that they would be able to avoid unseen circumstances, unintended consequences. And Lord, that by their judgments that would come from the wisdom from on high, Lord, it would help and benefit all of our community and help us to thrive and to live in the liberties that you've given us. Lord, we're so grateful for this land that you've allowed us to live in and to thrive. And Lord, I pray that you'd help these men and women, give them great safety, or give them peace of mind and wisdom. We thank you. We thank you for all that you've given us today. It's a beautiful day out there today. Thank you for our beautiful community. Thank you for the people of it. Lord, we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Cowan. Madam Vice Chair, would you care to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Chair Murillo. Randy, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Ellens?
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Here.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Present.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Present.
Chair Sanchez?
Present. The commission convenes as the Board of County Commissioners and the County Board of Finance in open session. Mr. Macias, are there any changes to the agenda?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. There are no changes to the agenda.
Very good. Then we'll move on to Pet Showcase. Mr. Macias?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those in the audience and that may be viewing the proceedings, the County Commission takes the opportunity at each of its meetings to promote the adoption of animals from the Animal Services Center. So I'll start with our Dog of the Week, Rose, 1 year old, a medium-sized breed and female. I'm very happy-go-lucky girl who always up for a nice walk outside. I do get a little excited sometimes, but I'm still very gentle. I love eating treats and getting pets and scratches. I am a bit of a jumper, but with extra training, I'd be perfect. After a fun time outside, I love to be a lap dog, getting nice, calm cuddles from my humans. I have so much love to give to my forever family. Our Dog of the Week, Rose, a lovely looking dog. Our Cat of the Week is Tyrone. He's 3 years old, male. I am definitely a schmooze when it comes to people. I love getting pets and rubbing up on your hands and legs. I'm also gently grab you to keep petting me if I don't want you to stop. Better than a slap across the face. I truly love human attention. When it comes to other animals, I prefer to be the king of my own castle. But my perfect family wouldn't mind that because I have just as much love to give as an entire room full of other cats. Tyrone and Rose are waiting for someone to adopt them. If not either of these two animals, then certainly any other animals at the Animal Services Center. And there's an adoption event at Petco this coming Saturday from 11 to 2 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. All right, we're on to our public input portion of our meeting. We invite the public up to provide public comment to the Board of County Commissioners. We ask that if you're here for a specific agenda item, we ask that you wait until that agenda item is up for discussion to speak on it. Otherwise, we'll allow 2 minutes for public input. When you're done speaking, or you'll come up, state your name for the record, provide your input, and then we ask that you fill out our book on the left for our records. So, all right, we'll start with public input. Are there any members of the public that would like to come up and speak? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Beverly Hogan. I'm a retired history teacher. So free and fair elections are something I'm very passionate about. I want to talk to you about trade-offs. Would you rather have a fast election or an accurate one? Would you rather voting be easy, but also easy to cheat? Or have voting be a bit harder to minimize fraud? Too many of our military men and women have sacrificed their lives to protect our sacred right to vote. So why do legislators and election officials make our elections less secure with things like no photo ID, no signature required, voting by mail, unsupervised ballot drop boxes, extended times, weeks even, before Election Day to vote, extended times after Election Day to vote? There is an easy solution. We will need to get rid of the voting machines, which both the Republicans and the Democrats are manipulating here in New Mexico. We need single day of voting, vote in person with photo ID and signatures. Paper ballots, hand counting. All of Europe does that successfully. They have a national day of voting, which is a national holiday. We could do the same thing, a 24-hour day for national voting. Why can't we? We can. With both Democrats and Republicans making allegations that elections are stolen, there's only one solution to this bickering every election cycle. The solution is simple. It's ballot accountability, which I've given to all of the commissioners here.
And
You
ma'am,
have a numbered paper
I'll ask you
ballot.
to wrap it up. Sorry, I apologize. The timer was set for 3 minutes. I had noted before 2
I
minutes.
timed it. It's 2 minutes.
Okay.
Trust me.
Well, like I said, I know we've hit 2 minutes already, so if you don't mind wrapping up, ma'am.
It would have to.
Okay, we take numbered paper
that?
ballots with
Sorry,
perforated.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Sorry, Mr. Macias, what were you saying?
I believe that we set erroneously at 3 minutes. I don't think that our technical people heard you say 2.
Correct.
If it's at,
Correct. And that's why I think the original timer. So I apologize, and you can
That's
wrap it
okay.
up.
But it's just paper ballots. They're numbered, handed out randomly. There's a perforation at the bottom. The voter, after filling it out, tears it off, takes it with them. The Secretary of State posts all the ballots online per county in numerical order. You can go and see your actual ballot. It's that simple. The technology is already here to do that. All it takes is future elections and election officials like you to basically stand up for this inexpensive, foolproof way to keep fraud in future elections. Thank you.
Thank you. And don't, ma'am. Ma'am. I need you to, sorry, yeah, if you don't mind, after you're done providing the information there on the book. Thank you for our record. Good morning, Mr. Garcia.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. County Manager. It was announced recently, quote, the Pink House is coming to town. Pink houses used to represent toys innocent kids play with. This pink house symbolizes the termination of unwanted defenseless life. Since then, numerous businesses are planning to move to the Mecca of abortion, which is New Mexico. I will not tell you that abortion is legalized killing. You know that. Or the unique purpose of an abortion clinic is to provide surgical death to the defenseless unborn. You know that too. We weep for kids murdered in schools, but we celebrate the right to, quote, terminate at 32 weeks. So why do we have this hypocrisy? And now we want a thriving, quote, abortion clinic, as stated by City Councilor Bencomo in Las Cruces, who has some of the most lax laws in the nation, to perform legalized killings on our 11, 12, 13-year-olds, sisters, daughters, and nieces. Your 11-year-old daughter discovers she's pregnant. She can quickly go to the internet and look up in the HHS website who points her to abortionfinder.org. She enters her zip code, selects her age, 15 or younger, and out pops the abortion laws. No waiting period, no counseling required, and no limit on pregnancy. And if you're under 18, you can consent to an abortion and do not have to notify your parents. Very simple. So my question is, why make it so simple to young teens with a local readily available abortion clinic and no focus on prevention? With abortion joining the marijuana industry in Las Cruces, we will soon be promoting addiction and legalized killing. But you know that, and you can do something about it. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm William Bierman. I'd like to cite some facts about elections that show that we need a comprehensive audit by a major CPA firm for our election process. In August 2018, Las Cruces held a mail-in ballot election. The Sun News reported that 60,500 mailed ballots were returned, or 60,000 were mailed out, and the post office returned 8,656 as undeliverable. Also, the Sun News reported that one resident said she got a dozen ballots at her home. This is unacceptable. A competent audit firm will look for internal control weaknesses and economy and efficiency problems. An example of an internal control weakness is that the county clerk received and partially opened absentee ballots behind closed doors before the clerk sent those ballots to the absentee voter board for processing. No observers were allowed in the clerk's office, so there was no assurance over where ballots came from or whether they were legitimate. An example of an economy and efficiency problem is that the board used 26 cardboard boxes marked with the letters of the alphabet to do an alphabetical sorting of the ballots. With such a tedious process, the board could not get its job done before the end of election night. The county clerk sent out 90,000 unsolicited ballot applications for the presidential election. How many went to questionable addresses disclosed by the August 28 mail-in bond issue election or to other bogus addresses? Qualified auditors will use their expertise to identify and recommend improvements in the system so that citizens can have confidence in it. And I'll send details to you individually by email this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Travis Brown. I'm the Executive Director for the Southern New Mexico State Fair and Rodeo. And I'm just here today to thank you and the county staff for everything that you're doing in support of our event. The facilities look tremendous. Andy Segovia and Ray Ramirez with facilities have been performing a lot of projects, doing tremendous work out there. We're very excited this year for the community to see all the effort and work that's gone into the grounds. We also are very pleased that we've just executed an additional 5-year extension on our agreement to lease your facilities. So we're very appreciative for that, knowing that for the next 5 years you will be housing the Southern New Mexico State Fair and Rodeo, and we can continue the great relationship we've had for 56 years now. Also, I need to thank County Manager Macias. We contacted his office recently, kind of last minute, with the request for a letter of support for a New Mexico True Grant. And I'm proud to say we did receive a small amount, but for a public nonprofit, every little bit helps. His letter was definitely instrumental in the board looking favorably on our request. So thank you so much for that, sir. And we're looking forward to him joining us for our opening ceremonies as always. Our dates this year are September 28th through October 2nd. We're hard at work with your OEM staff, preparing, trying to improve on communications. Your IT staff is assisting us, looking for ways to improve the internet out there, along with the Sheriff's Department will again be our law enforcement agency this year. So I just want the commission to know how involved you are behind the scenes and how involved your staff is in putting on this great tradition and annual event. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Good morning,
morning.
Commissioners. Good morning. I'm here to share a story with you all. Something that happened that was kind of like prophetic a few years ago, right before the elections of 2020. I had a conversation with your ex-commissioner, Isabela Solis, and she had shared right before the elections of 2020 that she had walked into a restaurant and she had seen Amanda Esquin talking with some Democrat officials. And during that time, I was like, well, don't you think that that's not right, Isabela Solis? Because were there Republicans there? She said, no. So what I told her at the time was a joke. Oh, maybe they're planning to steal our elections, Isabela. And she just giggled. She has this cute little giggle. Well, the thing is that we need to start, you know what, exposing corruption when we see it. Right now, we're in trouble. Our state's in trouble. We're here praying. Jesus would be turning over tables and chairs, and okay, we pray. But now we have to be putting that into action. Because we see our community hurting. And Jesus sees that. For years, God has been giving me visions and dreams. He's crying. Jesus is crying. And now we have people that are going to come in here because it's easy to break the law and kill babies. And don't give me a smirk, please.
You're addressing the county, me as a chairman.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. But you know what? This needs to be serious. It needs to be serious. People need to know. People need to know. You all need to help us. We need our laws to be enforced. We need people to be exposed that are doing the wrong thing. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. And please don't forget to sign our book, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Schultz, and I live here in Las Cruces. After several months of listening to different opinions and references to the supposed facts versus fictions, all regarding the integrity of our election, I'm left to ask, why don't we let them give us the facts and let us disprove those facts? Let them show us the data so we really know what we're dealing with. The next question to be asked is, why aren't those documents that are meant to be available to the public via IPRA request actually available as specified in the election handbook? The question appears to be simple to me. If we have an open and free election with integrity, show the public what everyone is asking for. The concern is lack of trust. Therefore, in the interest of public trust and in order to dispel the cloud of mystery, I respectfully request that the County Commission allow the presentation of facts to be placed on the County Commission's meeting agenda and hear these so-called facts once and for all. Let everyone decide for themselves. What can you be afraid of if the truth is what everyone seeks? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning, County Commissioners.
Morning.
My name's Rob Wood. I'm a resident of Las Cruces. I'm a political campaigning coordinator, and yesterday we met to discuss door-knocking strategies, especially in light of the growing distrust we are hearing at the doors concerning the lack of security of our voting methods, as shown by the evidence brought forward by reputable professionals. We all agreed that it's not our job to convince the voters that it's accurate and true. It is the job of our county officials to take the evidence and publicly address it. Just this board saying there was no hanky-panky is not cutting it without taking the evidence and openly rendering a researched verdict on it. You are our elected officials, and we demand accountability based on that alone to give the voters the confidence they need to trust the votes they cast are accurately counted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Karen Landino, and I'm a resident of Las Cruces. I would just like to say that I feel that it's my responsibility to vote. It's every American citizen's responsibility to vote. And I believe that it's the commissioners, the county commissioners or county councils, your responsibility to make sure that my vote gets counted and that it gets counted correctly and fairly. And that's your duty. Like, it's my duty to vote. It's your duty to make sure that my vote gets counted correctly. And I think we all know that these voting machines they're not certified, for one thing. They're not certified by the Secretary of State. So how can we be sure that our votes are counted correctly? I don't think we can. And I think it's your responsibility to make sure that they are. That this gets taken care of before the next election. Because it's our integrity, your integrity, all of you, all of us. It's our integrity at stake. And I think we need to stand up for what's right and do what's right. Because in the end, all of us, each and every one of us, is going to stand before the Lord. And we're going to have to look him in the eye and say, this is why I did what I did. And I'm just asking you all to do what's right. To do what's right. Make sure this gets taken care of. These machines are done away with. And that our votes and our integrity and your integrity stays in place. Thank you.
Good morning. Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Benji Kosman. I'm a resident of Las Cruces. I came today to express my concern and to add my voice to those who have previously spoken to request the Commission seriously consider our concerns regarding the election policies and procedures over the last several years. I've heard and read that our Secretary of State claims that the 2000 Mules documentary has been debunked. Just yesterday, I saw something, news flash, where one of the mules carrying the ballots had been arrested. I'm here to say that someone is feeding you lies, and know that proof has been provided with geospatial pinpointing technology, identifying and matching videos of ballot harvesting mules and the illegal use of absentee drop boxes and mail-in ballot claims are being proven true over and over again. The evidence is overwhelming across the nation. Why the lies persist is because those that deny the truth are afraid of the outcome. Likewise, the technology in the Dominion tabulators showing the same algorithm results of supposed voting habits of citizens in county after county in New Mexico is obviously not human behavior when it pretty much shows the same thing. To provide the citizens of this county a peace of mind that their votes count, you must rid yourselves of these illegal, uncertified Dominion machines. When the beyond disbelief proof has been denied, it's been only to call those who are rightly concerned names Christofascists, liars, Trumpers, but there's nothing to back up their denials, and no proof of independent investigation is given when the denial is claimed. I'm here requesting an investigation for the truth, but first drop the machines, return to hand counting ballots, investigate the CVRs, and stop slow walking the IPRA requests and playing games. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lisa Parrott. Today I will be reading selected verses from Proverbs 29 of the New Living Translation. Whoever stubbornly refuses to accept criticism will suddenly be destroyed beyond recovery. When the godly are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked are in power, they groan. The man who loves wisdom brings joy to his father, but if he hangs around with prostitutes, his wealth is wasted. A just king gives stability to his nation, but one who demands bribes destroys it. Evil people are trapped by sin, but the righteous escape, shouting for joy. The godly care about the rights of the poor, the wicked don't care at all. Mockers can get a whole town agitated, but the wise will calm anger. The bloodthirsty hate blameless people, but the upright seek to help them. Fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back. If a ruler pays attention to liars, all his advisors will be wicked. If a king judges the poor fairly, his throne will last forever. When the wicked are in authority, sin flourishes, but the godly will live to see their downfall. When people do not accept divine guidance, they run wild, but whoever obeys the law is joyful. An angry person starts fights. A hot-tempered person commits all kinds of sin. Pride ends in humiliation, while humility brings honor. If you assist a thief, you only hurt yourself. Fearing people is a dangerous trap, but trusting the Lord means safety. Many seek the ruler's favor, but justice comes from the Lord. What you're seeing here today are the people groaning, and we will continue to groan until we receive justice. Thank you for your serious consideration of our requests, and God bless.
Good morning. My name is, Joan Shearer. I'm a resident of Doña Ana County. I'm here today to discuss once again and further rebut comments from the prior county commissioners' meetings regarding the facts on which concerns of Doña Ana County citizens are baseless and have in fact been debunked. That is untrue. Based on the following facts, we are requesting that the county commissioners discuss the changing of habits in the election process in Doña Ana County, which I will itemize at the end. Known violations by our Secretary of State. NMSA 1-12-69 and 52 USC 20701, which is a fourth-degree felony, based on NMSA 1-5-22 and 1-5-23, unlawful destruction of data recording media and voter files, which has been admitted to by the Secretary of State. NMSA 1-2-2 and NMSA 1-221, failure to report to the AG's or the DA's offices for investigation of the above aforementioned destruction of data. NMSA 1-9-7.8B, failure to ensure that failures go not detected, or not undetected, NMSA 1-9-7.9, C, failure to ensure that the votes stored on the removable storage media device accurately represent the actual votes cast. Again, a violation of 1 NMSA 1-2-2, and NMSA 1-2-21. NMSA 1-9-7.4b, which requires that voting systems comply with all requirements under current election code, or be decertified for use in the state of New Mexico. That would be the Dominion tabulators are currently uncertified, and Robus e-poll books have yet to be properly certified. And I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I want to comment. My name is Werner Pfau. I'm a dual citizen of Germany and the United States of America. Comment on a couple of statements made by our county clerk during these sections here these last few weeks. First statement is where she states that if she had to rate our elections, she would rate them a 10 out of 10, which is basically a perfect score. At the time when I heard that statement, I was not aware of the fact that our county clerk is also part of the 4-member New Mexico Voting System Certification Committee. You can find that information right here on the Secretary of State's website. She's basically giving herself and her committee a perfect score. Where I come from, that is called a conflict of interest. How can she be trusted to give an honest assessment of these elections and to ask the necessary hard questions? Lastly, I also heard that she will choose to not take what is being presented here on these Tuesday mornings as personal. Our comments are not meant to be personal. We're talking about a system that is full of unnecessary vulnerabilities that can easily be manipulated and or exploited by bad actors. We're asking you to eliminate these vulnerabilities and to go back to a paper-based election system. Because if my vote is tampered with, I take that personal. That vote is all I have to bring about change. I have earned that right to vote, ladies and gentlemen. I stood in line for my green card, and I stood in line for my citizenship. I've earned it, and that is why I will fiercely protect it. Please do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Amy Rohr, and I'm going to give an unpopular opinion considering what I've already heard here this morning. I've been a resident of Doña Ana County since 1979, have only voted in Doña Ana County, and I've never had issue with anything in the process. Voting here, to me, and this is my opinion, has always been, I won't say easy, but it hasn't been difficult. I have family that live in other states, and they go through torturous conditions to try to vote. I always make sure my vote is counted. I go on the county website. County website is very transparent. I don't believe that there's anything wrong with the voting machines. I haven't seen proof. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe the scare tactics that people use to try to get people not to vote. And I think my biggest concern about all of this that I hear is I know what's gearing up for the next election. And it's going to be a matter of people are going to say it was rigged and this and that. I've had candidates that I voted for that didn't win, and I didn't think the system was rigged. I thought it worked perfectly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Bernie Digman. I'm here again to address the Christo-fascists. Again, these allegations, this evidence has been thrown out of federal courts by Republican judges 64, 65, 66 times. This is a rehash over and over and over. Since the last time we had a meeting and I spoke. The leader of the New Mexico audit force is quoted as saying, they, meaning you and other county commissioners and other government officials, only respond to fear. Now, that's one heck of a way to approach a problem, if there is a problem, which there isn't. Also, and I'm sure you know this, but I think it needs to be said from this side of the podium, many of the folks who are here attacking our county clerk and our election officials recently met out at a little church on Highway 70 and signed pledge cards. How creepy is that? How weird is that? That people would sign pledge cards to show up and attack what is an honest system, which there is no evidence that there has been any corruption in, and has worked just fine. When I hear the leader of this group say that Satan is in the election ballot tabulators, that gives me a good idea of what all this is about. It's not about transparency. It's not about fair elections. It's about a cult. And I'll say it over and over and over. It's a cult. They don't like the way the elections have turned out. They lost all of the court cases. And so their next step is to come here and make baseless accusations to try and intimidate you and to use fear. And I really appreciate the fact that you sat up there and listened to this and that you don't budge. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other further input?
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Charles Wendler. We heard at the beginning of this assembly a man of God who asked for wisdom to come down upon all of you. Have we really listened to that? That's a prayer. That's a communication with our sovereign God. These other folks that have spoken before you this morning have echoed that message very clearly. They've offered solutions, I might emphasize. And I'm wondering if you have ears to hear. You know, the good book is very clear. If you know what the right thing to do is and you don't do it, that's sin. We're all sinners, every single one of us. And I'm right up there at the head of the line. But do we admit these things? When you hear the truth, the speaker before me, he just doesn't really get it. It's pretty obvious. And we need to pray for him. Okay? So I would urge you all to truly have ears to hear. Look at Revelations 2 and 3 about the 7 churches. We do trust you, folks. You're our elected officials. You serve us. Okay? So please keep that in mind. You've taken an oath. You know that. I don't need to tell you that. And I don't mean to be condescending or critical. I'm just reinforcing what you already know, what is the right thing to do. 2 big issues here today, election integrity, abortions. Start with those things. Good Lord will hear you. In his name, amen.
Chair Sanchez, can I please have him sign the book?
Yes, please.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Wendler. Thank you, Brandy. Good morning.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Zeke Rodriguez. I'm running for State Representative District 37, so I have a vested interest in the election process. And to just to address the individuals that saying there's no evidence, I got involved with politics heavily during 2018 Yvette Harold's campaign, where I was deeply invested with her campaign, helping her get elected. And, we witnessed in the middle of the night, 4,000 ballots get dumped in, not time-stamped, all Democrats, no signatures verified. And she lost that election because of those absentee ballots. And I, fast forward to when I was helping Isabella Solis with her campaign in the same district, okay? She dominated in the in-person voting, dominated, but when it came to absentee ballots, she lost by 4 times the amount of absentee ballots, not verified signatures, not verifying American citizenship. So there are absolutely discrepancies with the election process that aside from, God is in the Declaration of Independence 4 times. That's our right to convene. Aside from that, there is obvious discrepancies with the election process. And we're the last state in the country. Why wouldn't it be that we'd have the worst election process in the country? This is just reasonable stuff. So I want to figure out what we can do to make our city, our state better and transparent elections where we have voter ID, where we have transparent absentee ballots. That's the first step towards getting this state on the right track. Because right now, we're the worst state in America. So why wouldn't we have the worst election process in America? Thank you for listening.
So, if you don't mind signing the book, thank you. Morning, Ms. Perry.
Good morning. How are you guys? I just wanted to introduce myself. I met a few of you already. My name is Kim Perry. I am the Southeast Field Representative for Congresswoman Yvette Harrell, and we're a little short-staffed, so I'm going to be covering this part of the district from now until November. So I just want to introduce myself, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming, Ms. Perry. Sorry, if you'd like to come up for public input, thank you.
Good morning, you all. My name is Michael Simmons. Been in the district in Doña County for a couple decades now. Coming back into the election integrity issues, I think what you're saying is that there's a place of both how important this thing is and the probability of it occurring. So we don't care if there's ants in the lawn. We know for sure there's ants in the lawn. We don't really care they don't do anything. On the flip side, there's asteroids in space. They're going to wreck the nation, whatever. We care, but it's a low probability. Fraud in this case, I believe, is one of those cases that it's of such high importance that even if you believe it to be low probability, it still must be investigated. Fraud is the death of the republic. It is we the people voicing our concerns to the nation, saying how we wish to be governed. From your standpoint, after you've been elected, fraud takes away your reason, your importance of being an elected official. It is why you exist. So in that case, if you believe it low probability, it's still of high enough importance, I believe it should be investigated. And so I'd ask you maybe on the next agenda, put in an item, you can do some due diligence, you can investigate, you're not an investigative body, but you can ask around, are some of these accusations true or not on their face without much effort? And if they are, would you start opening up a commission or something to start asking how do we resolve the issue? I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hello, morning. My name is Rick Renault, lifelong Las Cruces resident, product of local schools, including NMSU. I'd like to thank Chair Sanchez, Commissioners, Judge Chaparro, and Judge Macias. Why am I saying Judge Chaparro and Judge Macias? Because it's transparency that the gentleman mentioned earlier. Judges weigh all the evidence. So there is a real trust issue with citizens with voting. I've been studying it since 2018 also. I've seen crazy things in my city council district. Our most fundamental right. And now, especially after the 2000 Mule movie, yeah, I'll say it, 18-inch cell phone data with government time-stamped video backup, but don't look at it. Secretary of State says, don't look at that evidence. In the age of information, don't look at that evidence. Bad guys. So, the Herald report, I read it. I read the Herald report. The first time I read it, I didn't know what it said, but now I do. The public should know that there was hundreds of anomalies that year. It wasn't 2 anomalies, not 5, hundreds. So I guess just in closing, what we're asking is a place on the agenda for the evidence to be heard. From experts, we can zoom them in. I believe that we can, well, let me finish here. I just think I'm asking that we be placed on the agenda so that the evidence can be heard, so that you guys can decide. Thank you.
Any final input from the public? Yeah.
My name is Mark Veith. I'm a retired federal agent. I live in the county. An audit. Have an audit. If it's clear and it's transparent, have an audit. Traditionally, absentee ballots in a general election are 10 to 15%. Absentee ballots in this last primary election were almost 1/4. 1/4. That says to me that those absentee ballot boxes are being stuffed. They've got a lot of time to do that. They've got weeks to do that. Intimidation, we're not here to intimidate you. As a matter of fact, the only person that I think has been trying to intimidate you and us, because he has a raised voice and he throws out curses, Christo-fascists. He had obviously last session was trying to intimidate both us and you all. Oh, everything's perfect. Don't look. Close your eyes. Put your head in the sand. It's fine. It's not fine. There is a problem. Even if it's a fraction of a problem, there's a problem. Have an audit. And the last thing, there was a correction that needs to be made from last time. We do not live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. And the Second Amendment of that Constitution is the right to keep and bear arms. Arms. At that time, some of our founding fathers owned cannons. The reason that was put in there was if a government got out of control, it gave we the people the ability to bring that government back. But it was also done during the Revolutionary War with plenty of warning and disgruntlement. We need the government to do the right thing. Thank you.
And sir, don't forget to sign our book. Thank you. Okay. All right. Any last public input before we move on? All right. Thank you. All right, then we'll move on to, we're on staff input. Mr. Macias, is there any staff input?
There is, thank you. It'll be very brief. Good morning, Chair Sanchez, commissioners. Wait for the video to get loaded up here. Once again, we'd like to be recognizing one of our community partners, and this is actually an organization that is sponsored by the Office of Emergency Management. It is the Southern New Mexico Medical Reserve Corps, and it is made up of the people in our community who just wanted to come out and volunteer to help during COVID. So with that, we'll play the video and then I'll wrap up.
This week, Doña Ana County salutes the Southern New Mexico Medical Reserve Corps for their efforts during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Southern New Mexico Medical Reserve Corps is a volunteer organization under the Office of Emergency Management. Throughout the pandemic, they provided medical care to patients at the COVID-19 shelters and hotels, conducted COVID testing, and assisted with vaccination pods. The membership in the Southern New Mexico Medical Reserve Corps grew thanks to an influx of medical students from the Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine and nursing students from the NMSU and Doña Ana County Community College. The volunteers provided tens of thousands of hours of service to the community directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic over the past 18 months. Doña Ana County salutes the Southern New Mexico Medical Reserve Corps. Thank you for being the boots on the ground to provide medical care to those residents impacted by COVID-19.
Again, Commissioners, the members of the Southern New Mexico Medical Reserve Corps are entirely volunteer-based, and they really did put in the hours. We had upwards of 150 volunteers at individual events early on when we were doing our mass vaccination campaigns. So it's really been through their efforts that we were able to get to where we are when people came out wanting to get vaccinated. And before there are any other questions, just a quick update on our hospital data. Over the last 7 days, according to CDC data, we've only had 4 hospital admissions within our county for COVID-19. Total of 3.2% of our hospital beds are in use for treating COVID patients, and 7.8% of our ICU beds are in use for treating COVID patients. Unfortunately, our ICU numbers are up, but our fatalities are still holding. We have not had any new fatalities in a couple of weeks, which is really good for our county. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commissioners might have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Lopez? Commissioner Allens? Go ahead, Commissioner.
In the last couple of days, there have been reports of a subvariant of COVID-19, which is highly transmissible. Do you have any information or thoughts regarding that?
Chair Sanchez and Commissioner Ellens, yes, it's the BA4 and BA5 subvariants of the Omicron variant of COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2. It is showing that it is more transmissible, but severity does appear to be down. The fatality rates globally, U.S. and here in New Mexico are all moving downward, which is a really good sign in the midst of increasing numbers. We are seeing worldwide cases are going up, but in the United States, we've actually been holding a fairly flat line, and same here in Doña Ana County and in the state of New Mexico for about the last 2.5 weeks. So we may already be kind of at that peak. The BA5 subvariant is the dominant subvariant right now in the United States. So it's definitely there, and it's not going to be the last one that we encounter. There will be more variants, I'm sure.
Is it as serious in terms of COVID illness as previous versions?
It does not appear to be based on what we're seeing on the hospitalization data. When we had similar numbers of the original SARS-CoV-2 virus and the original Omicron strain, our hospitalization numbers were much higher than what we are seeing for the same number of cases that we have right now with the BA5 subvariant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Allens. Are there any other questions for Mr. Lopez? All right. I think thinking back with the Reserve Corps, it just brings back memories that what we've been through over the last year with the pods that you all helped coordinate and get going, the big events at the Pan Am Center. It's number one, thank you to all of those all the volunteers, all the efforts. But it's just amazing to think totally where we're at from a year ago. So thank you, Mr. Lopez. I appreciate everything the OEM does, you do, and again, the volunteers that have helped us through this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
Mr. Chairman, just another few items. I did want to share with the commission because, again, people tend to focus on the negative. But in this case, Mr. Al Kordowski, a resident off of Soledad Canyon Road, called to commend the expedited service from the roads department after a heavy rain caused damage and drainage issues next to his driveway. He says he called, and within 15 minutes, Manny Ferales, who is one of our roads foremen, was calling him, and within a short time, the crew repaired the damage. He stated that what a pleasure it was to see how quickly the roads department reacted and was in action, that it was impressive and refreshing, and he made the effort to basically call the manager's office to inform us of that. According to Mr. Ferales, Doña Ana County Road Department responded to a work order for erosion on that shoulder of Soledad Canyon Road, responded to the work order in less than an hour, repaired the erosion with soil cement so that the rainwater flow will not cause any more erosion in that area. The employees that responded to this work order were Mr. Manuel Ferrales as the road's foreman, Jerry Galas, Thomas Ballinger, Ignacio Gonzalez, Willie Banegas, and Ruben Olivas. I wanted to just take the opportunity to recognize these employees before you. None are here today because of the very heavy level of work that is occurring right now. I also wanted to bring to the attention of the commission, and we've provided you with regular reports, I believe that we ended up hiring 870 high school students related to the summer work program that the county, in partnership with the Public Education Department. These were students that can work and are working up to 200 hours, being paid $13 an hour, basically coming out of this summer internship with $2,600 in terms of compensation for their services. And I do want to recognize, so that you probably have seen students around the building, but I want to assure you that they were placed all over the county in both private, nonprofit, governmental work settings. I'd like to thank the schools for their support of this effort as well. And we did work with all 3 school districts in Doña Ana County. But I do want to bring to your attention Miss Kiana Washington, who's here with us today. And she's been working, having been assigned to our Assistant County Manager, Jonathan Macias. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That completes staff input.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. And we've got how much longer do we have with the internship program? I think we're getting close to wrapping up on this week.
I think Ms. Washington finishes up her 200 hours on the 21st of this month. The Las Cruces School District is returning to school a little bit earlier because of their new calendar, Gadsden and Hatch a little bit later. But we believe that all of the 870 placements are going to be able to work long enough to complete their 200 hours. So it'll be staggered in terms of when each individual student reaches the maximum number of hours that they can work.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Macias. Appreciate it. Ms. Washington, thank you for working here in the internship with Mr. Macias and Doña Ana County. So thank you so much. All right, then we're on to county elected officials input. Dr. Askin.
Good morning, Commission. Dr. Amanda Lopez-Askin, Doña Ana County Clerk. Good to see you all this morning. Mr. Macias mentioned, I believe it was in a previous meeting, that the purpose of public input is to offer, feedback to the commissioners and not to respond to it generally. That's not generally done. And so, although I won't necessarily go into individuals, I do think it is important for me to respond to misinformation, malinformation, or items that I think would help anyone watching or anybody who will watch accurate information. So that's what I'm here to do today. I'm also going to begin really quickly by thanking facilities and IT for assisting our office in relocating temporarily down the hallway while we reconfigure and remodel the interior of our office. We're very grateful for the additional staff that we're going to have, and part of that has worked well into our plan. So just as a heads up and a thank you. Heads up that we are temporarily down the office, but also to thank Mr. Macias, administration, as well as the commission for the support of those additional employees, which will be very helpful moving towards the election. And so specifically connected to something I said previously about rating my confidence in elections, and I gave us a 10. I think the question that I answered, and I could be wrong, was how confident was I in our machines? And I said a 10. So I obviously have a high level of confidence overall in our elections But definitely it's a human process. And so like any human process, we are going to have areas in which we're always looking to improve. And a lot of that includes training, election officials, recruitment, et cetera. And to offer some clarification about photo ID in New Mexico. There continues to be this misinformation that we do not require identification in New Mexico to vote, and that is just simply not true. When you initially submit your application, your voter registration, you are required to provide that photo identification. If you register by mail the first time you vote, you are required to provide that photo identification at the polling location. Subsequent to that, you are asked to identify yourself, or you are able to identify yourself in 3 different ways. That would be a photo ID, the voter registration card that our office sends, as well as a verbal affirmation of specific information known only to you, as well as a signature. A signature is taken every time a person individually identifies themselves, and when they do, they affirm under a 4th-degree felony that they are the person that is voting. And so just to offer that. I also want to offer some additional clarification, what is referred to as drop boxes. I don't specifically like that term. I refer to them as secured containers because it really highlights the additional security that we have. They are actually more secure than postal drop boxes, right? So when you drop your mail and you believe that that is secure, which I believe most people do, we offer enhanced security, including 24-hour surveillance, removal of the ballots within 24 hours, sensors that notify us immediately if there's any manipulation or any nefarious or even suspected nefarious, and we are notified and then we investigate that. And we're fortunate to be able to utilize those cameras during that time to figure out. And sometimes it literally could be something as somebody just knocking against it. So just keep that in mind. And so also to offer, this is great news, we actually do have hand-marked paper ballots in New Mexico. Several years ago, there was legislation that removed that. We went to more of an electronic process. That didn't last long because voters feel more confident with hand-marked paper ballots. And we do have those. We have every single one of them. And I believe there was, during the general, 85,000, and we still have those. So we do have hand-marked paper ballots. Your ballot, we do not have pre-printed ballots. We have a ballot on-demand system, which says when you come to our polling location and you identify yourself in the way that you choose, we print a ballot based on your registration address. Additionally, we do have embedded audits in every process and every step along the way connected to our election. And during general elections, there actually is an independent CPA that does randomized audits of X amount of precincts across the entire state. Because we're a larger county, we tend to have more, which we welcome. We actually supported legislation this past legislative session in which there were additional ones built in for every single year. So we support that process and an independent CPA doing that every election. And if you support that and you're somebody that does, please contact your legislature. There was also a mention of Election Day. Somebody specifically believed that should be highlighted as an obligation, responsibility, and honor in terms of voting. And I agree. And in fact, Senate Bill 8, which was introduced this past year by the governor, included a provision for Election Day being a holiday, something I support. In terms of, I'm really, I think it was Mr. Reynaud that mentions he was born and raised in Las Cruces, and I always like to highlight that as well. I was born and raised here, 3-time Aggie, and really have worked my entire career in doing things to benefit my community. And that builds relationships across the board in all areas, including Democrats, Republicans, Libertarian, DTSs. So if you do see me out and about socializing, the reality is I'm probably with a mix of folks, and I'm very fortunate to be very connected to my community. And in fact, I presented to the Republican Party. I think I'm the first county clerk, and Commissioner Ellens, you may add some clarity to this, but I was told that it was the first time a Democrat county clerk had presented to the Republican Party. On May 9th, they had a great turnout, asked a lot of great questions, and I was happy to give them some of the information that I'm giving you today. I would also say that if there is anyone who has specific information about any nefarious activity, anything that they're concerned about, any allegations of fraud, I would highly encourage them to report it to the Attorney General, report it to the District Attorney, or report it to the Secretary of State's office if they do not want to report it to our office. We fully support any full investigation of specific activity that anyone is aware of. As far as I can tell, I don't believe we received any complaints this past election, and none in 2020. So again, there is a route and a path for complaints specifically connected to activity or concerns, and I hope that those who have those specific concerns utilize those mechanisms. Additionally, I was proud to be appointed by the Senate Pro Tem on the Voting Security Certification Committee. Generally, those positions are held by clerks because we are the experts and the trusted source connected to elections, and that is supported by our legislature, who does appoint individuals. Please visit Myth versus Reality, or Rumor versus Reality on the Secretary of State's website, which offers additional clarifications on some of the things I mentioned. And dacelections.com is specific to Doñana. And we also have a page there that we're building connected to misinformation and disinformation. That is all I have connected to that. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I appreciate all of your support and all of the deep dives you individually have done into elections to really understand the process and really believe that the work we do is fair, free, and full of integrity.
Thank you, Dr. Askin. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Owens?
We keep hearing that these machines are not certified. Can you address that complaint?
They're wrong, Commissioner.
What is the certification process?
Well, the certification process for each county is we extend invitations, usually through parties, but we do public notice. So the certification of the machines is a confirmation of accuracy. And the confirmation of accuracy is done at every single county prior to the election. Every iteration of the ballot is run through our machine. And the results should mirror what we expect them to be, right, which is basically programmed in. So I may know that there's a certain amount of ballots for each candidate, and it should be confirmed by the record, by the tape. And once those are confirmed and that machine is accurate, the machine is sealed. This is a public process that the public is invited to and that we encourage them to attend. If you've not attended one, it's very boring, but if you are concerned about it, I think it's actually very helpful. After the certification, the machines are sealed and they are not open again until the machine is open for voting. And at that point, the election official in our community is from our community opens them and confirms the zero count, which is there's 0 counts, 0 votes on that specific machine. And that's done by community members. One of the checks and balances we have in New Mexico elections is we have a fair breakdown of party affiliation each of our polling locations. And so that's that increased accountability that we count on.
Your explanations are falling on deaf ears.
Yes, sir. But I also think it's important that anyone watching, anyone who's sitting here today, anybody who watches this later on, has accurate information, because they may not. They may be open to that information.
It strikes me that addressing the commission to fixed supposed problems is an exercise in futility because we have no jurisdiction in that area whatsoever. It's a matter of talking to your legislature, talking to you, and talking to the Secretary of State. So it's kind of a waste of everybody's time to urge us to take some action which legally we're not qualified to do.
Chair Sanchez, Commissioner Ellens, I always say that one of the best things about my job, and sometimes one of the most challenging, is that we follow an election code. And that election code is dictated by the legislature, and we follow that law, as you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Askin? I know I was going to save this for commission inputs, and it's up next, but just my thoughts, there's a couple of things I want to say to you. Number one, Dr. Askin, I know that your integrity should never be questioned. I mean, you serve the people of Doñana County without fail. You serve them to ensure that voters, even are those that want to vote are able to. It's clear, it's transparent, it's fair. And I think that's the thing, the word I always hear you say is our elections are fair. I know a few weeks ago, Commissioner Reynolds and I had attended the New Mexico Association of Counties meeting where elections in New Mexico were discussed and why everything that is being brought up is, were addressed, and how the security of our elections is second to none. Why the results that are put out by the public or to the public are true and fair. And I look back at our Sandoval County in northern New Mexico when they certified their canvass the next day. It was their vice chairman, Commissioner David Hale, who I couldn't put it in as good of words as he did, talked about why the results of the election were accurate and why even the Sandoval County Commission approved that canvass. And it was everything they discussed between the triple audits that are done. We could go into it, but I felt like with that information that was provided to the New Mexico Association of Counties, I think there's no question that our elections across the state and here in Doña Ana County are fair, they're secure, and they're accurate. So I just want to say thank you to you, Dr. Askin. Thank you to your staff. Thank you to the commissioners. I know we sit here and we hear the public input. But I think when we go through that, I think there's a lot of information, and this is misinformation out there. And I know it's going to continue. I think as Commissioner Allen says, it's falling on deaf ears. This will continue, and that's the public's right to come and provide input. But I think that information is there of why our process is
excellent.
Thank you. Yes.
If I may, Chair Sanchez, Commission, I also would ask that this coming legislative cycle that maybe I could ask each of you to support Senate Bill 144. Senate Bill 144 specifically was connected to threats to election officials. When anyone from the public has input and they're angry and they're upset, the first feeling I have for them, quite frankly, is compassion. Because I know on some level they're scared. I know that they're concerned, and I don't discount that in any way. First let me say that. But I will also say Senate Bill 144, it offers enhanced protections for election officials. This week, in fact, I reported a death threat to myself, to the FBI, where the request after a posting on an extremist website about me said, "Hang her till she's dead." So if you'd consider those things that have been threatened, among other things, I'd appreciate your support of Senate Bill 144. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Madam Clerk. Sorry. Since Chairman Sanchez mentioned our meeting up in Santa Fe or in Albuquerque, I remember something that was asked and something was answered, and that is that it was at Harvard or MIT that actually did a rating of the elections for each state throughout the country. I think it was Harvard, wasn't it?
Chair Sanchez, Commissioner Reynolds, I would be remiss in not identifying it as MIT, which is Chair Sanchez's alma mater.
I didn't want that to be mentioned.
But MIT has what's called an election integrity index, I believe it's called. And MIT, as you know, is data-driven, very science-based. They don't have a party that they're behind either way. They just push data and facts. And so in the rankings of MIT, what they do is they include things like access to the ballot, security of elections, ability to securely register online, things like absentee and how easy it is, how secure it is to access your absentee ballot, things like that. And so it's a whole range of areas that New Mexico does really well in. I've said this 100 times. I have worked in many sectors. I have worked in healthcare, mental health, child welfare, animal advocacy, and education. And we have challenges in New Mexico when it comes to all those areas, and I know elected officials like you are continually working to improve those outcomes. I do know in New Mexico in 2020, which is the one that we keep focusing on, the 2020 election, during that year we were ranked number 9 nationally, 9 out of all of the states. So when you think, and again, MIT, they're just doing the rankings based on facts, best practices, implementations of election administration. So I appreciate the fact that they do that because it is helpful when discussing and dispelling misinformation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Harvard, come on.
There's nothing wrong with Harvard, just not MIT.
They're a fine institution, but. All right, then we're on to commission input. Is there any input from the county commission? Seeing none, then we'll move on to agenda item number 1, which is the minutes from the regular meeting of June 28th, 2022. Are there any issues identified or amendments to the minutes? All right, hearing none, if I can get a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Ellens,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Chaparro. Any input on the minutes of June 28th? Public input? Okay. Randy, will you call the roll on agenda item number 1?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes. Those meeting minutes are approved, 5-0. All right, we're on to consent agenda, which has one item. It's agenda item number 2. Is there any questions or on agenda item number 2? All right,
Mr.
hearing
Chairman.
none, if I can get a motion and a second to
Chairman.
approve.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Chaparro, seconded by Commissioner Reynolds. Any input?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Owens?
I couldn't think of a better entity to award this amount of money to than Tierra del Sol. It's been a leading advocate and instrumentality for creating low-cost housing in this county for many, many years. And I think it's made our job a lot easier.
Absolutely, I concur, Commissioner Owens. Okay, Brandy, will you call the roll on consent agenda, item number 2?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes. Okay. Now we're under the approvals section of our agenda, agenda item number 3. There's a presentation on the resolution and a lease agreement between Doña Ana County and Burrell Aviation, Doña Ana LLC, with the first year's lease to be determined. If I can get a motion and a second to begin discussion.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair
Second.
Murillo, seconded by Commissioner Chaparro. All right, Mr. Province, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Sanchez Commission. My name is Bill Province. I'm the airport manager. I would like to introduce CEO, Mr. David Goldschmidt, and John Rodstrom from Burrell Aviation. This will be a brief update on our efforts for economic development at the jetport and provide action by you to move this forward. One of the goals of the jetport is to develop the capability for air cargo operations. This is an ambitious and actionable economic development goal. It will provide many quality jobs. An aviation feasibility study report estimates the creation of 800 to 1,300 jobs. This project will build long-term economic competitiveness and diversity in Doña Ana County and southern New Mexico. The action before you today is to approve the land lease agreement with Burrell Aviation, Doña Ana LLC. Burrell Aviation Doña Ana is a division of Burrell Aviation which specializes in developing air cargo and logistics operations at airports. Burrell Aviation is a division of the Burrell Group. Their concept is to build a series of buildings to sublease to companies specializing in and supporting air cargo operations that will utilize aircraft up to the Boeing 737-700 series. These are medium-haul aircraft in the C3 category, weighing up to 170,000 pounds. They will be leasing 45.051 acres of land They will be leasing 45.051 acres of land for a 40-year term. This lease will be at 19 cents per square foot. The ground lease will be $372,860 per year. They initially plan to construct 4 buildings within a 3-year period. These buildings are an air cargo preparation and handling facility, distribution warehouse, and cold storage warehouse, and a series of aircraft maintenance hangars. Total area of the buildings is 549,800 square feet at an estimated total investment by Burrell of $72,281,200. This slide is a concept of the layout of the 45 acres. The large blue square are the warehouse and smaller buildings. Warehouses and the smaller buildings are the maintenance hangars capable of fitting a Boeing 737 aircraft inside. They're a little bit hard to see, but the larger of the two sizes there is the equivalent of a Boeing 737 aircraft. This concept fits within the overall development plan for the jetport as outlined in the airport master plan. There is a series of small aircraft T hangars on the right side or the east end of the airport, a series of 23 hangars for medium and large corporate jets in the south center. There's the white taxiway that will be built there. An air cargo maintenance on the left side or the west end of the airport. We are still planning to have space for more air cargo handling capability for larger aircraft associated with this future second cargo runway. The county's responsibility in the development of this capability is to widen the current runway from 100 feet to 150 feet and strengthen it with a 3-inch asphalt overlay to handle the additional weight. We will have to change some of the connecting taxiways by changing the geometry to handle the turning radius of the 737 and constructing several new connecting taxiways to the cargo ramp area. We will also be responsible to put in the utility infrastructure for these buildings. We anticipate the cost of our part of the construction to be about $11 million, which will come from the $20 million capital outlay grant provided by the governor and the 2022 legislature. The project will take from 1 to 3 years. Actually, 1 year for planning and then the maximum 2 years for construction everything to be completed by 3 years and up and operating. We believe this project will be a transformative for the economies of Doña Ana and the region. The vision is designed to grow new industries, scale existing ones that can use air cargo for transportation. It will provide infrastructure for those companies looking into relocating to onshore from overseas. This will also diversify the economy of the area and provide resiliency in the manufacturing base. Anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Province. Are there any questions? Commissioner Reynolds, and then we'll come to Commissioner Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill, thank you for this. I appreciate the presentation. If I understood you correctly, the requirements of the lease to beef up the runways to accommodate the 137s, the additional traffic and width and everything. And you said that we already have that funded as part of a budgeting from 2022 in the state, correct?
That is correct.
So this is not asking us to do anything more than what we already have planned, is what I understand that. Correct?
Yeah, there would be no cost to the county.
Again, I just want to clarify that we haven't received the grant agreement yet on the $20 million.
We have not, or
But that, we have not.
Okay.
But that is forthcoming. It was already appropriated out
Correct.
of the legislative session. It's just that the Department of Finance and Administration is having to administer thousands of these appropriations that came from the legislature. But I don't believe that we've brought that item to the commission, but we should be there within 30 to 60 days.
The reason I brought this up as part of what you're discussing is to make sure that the public understands that we've already addressed this issue, and we already have identified funds that are supposedly going to be available in order to do this. So providing this additional service down at the Jetport is really nothing more than what we'd already considered and what we'd already planned. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
So thank
that
you.
is correct.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Commissioner Allens?
The 737s have been in operation for quite a while. This proposal seems geared to service 737 jets, but it's a 40-year lease. Is the 737 still going to be around by the 40th year? Or do we have a guarantee that there'll be a similarly constructed aircraft to take its place?
You'll have to talk to the executives of Boeing for that, sir, but yes, they will be around. The 700 series is a relatively new aircraft and new in air cargo operations, and they will be around a long time. We are also looking at, once we get this developed, hopefully we will have a sufficient amount of operations that the FAA will allow us or contribute in building a second runway, which will handle larger aircraft up to a 777 or 747 if they're still around by that time. But that's in the future. We have to prove to them that we have that operations that justify the second runway.
And again, Mr. Chairman, the way to look at it is it's not so much tied to a particular airplane, it's the capacity to handle a certain amount of weight. And certainly there will be airplanes for the next 40 years that will be in the weight category that will be able to utilize the existing runway in its enhanced capacity.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you for your time.
All right. So we have a motion and a second on this item. If there's any public input before we call for a vote.
Mr. Chairman, this really is the opening of the utilization of the Jetport unlike what we have ever seen before. This is our first tenant agreement to come forward, and there will be others that will ultimately encompass the remaining 200 to 250 acres at the Jetport.
Yeah, good morning. I just had a
And
quick-
state your name for the record, please.
Yeah, sure. My name is Miles Dyson. I live in the Picacho Hills area. So I think this is a tremendous project. I just would be curious to know what planning has gone into allow for the traffic pattern, the increased flight. We already hear the jets. We've heard a increase in jet noise in our area and don't know if there will be provisions made to plan the flight patterns so that they would go over the populated areas as little as possible. So we'd like to have that as consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just add also, this is for the Jetport in Santa Teresa, so that way.
Oh, it's at Santa Teresa.
Correct, yeah, not the city of Las Cruces airport.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, but Ms. Prop.
Chair Sanchez, excuse me, Chair Sanchez said to address that question, part of any FAA approved program or expansion of the airport does include, especially if we have larger aircraft, a noise study that will allow for that, and there will also be public input to that at that time when we do those studies. That is part of the project.
Very good. Thank you. And hopefully that will, I know it doesn't specifically address Picacho Hills, but, you know, I know that'll be for our residents in the southern part of the county in Sunland Park, Santa Teresa area. So.
But Mr. Chairman, we can assure the individual that he will not be hearing any noise from the jet port in Santa Teresa.
Absolutely. No, and I think this is, you know, we one of the things that we've worked on here as a county has been that growth in Santa Teresa and trying to continue to provide that as an economic engine for the county, for the state. So I'm looking forward to this project. Okay. All right, Brandy, will you call the roll on item number 3, please?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
The item does have a resolution number. The number is 2022-38.
All right, thank you, Brandy. All right, we're on to agenda item number 4. It's award a contract to Train Technologies for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning replacements at the Government Center in the estimated amount of $4,495,628.78, including GRT. If I can get a motion and a second to begin discussion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Ellens.
Second.
Sorry, the second came from Vice Chair Murillo? Okay, very good. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Hernandez.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. My name's George Hernandez. Good morning, Judge. Again, my name's George Hernandez, and I'm the account manager assigned to Doña Ana, and I've worked for Train for almost 23 years, and I've spent about 19 of those years assisting Doña Ana with maintaining, repairing, replacing multiple HVAC and control systems on some of your larger facilities here. Throughout the years, I've become very familiar with the equipment on most of your buildings here. So at this time, I'd like to go through a quick short presentation and explain why Train recommends the replacement of the HVAC and control system here at the Government Center. So real quick, I'll go through an agenda here. The agenda will go over the current equipment conditions. We'll discuss Department of Energy 2023 standards that'll affect the equipment. I'll explain the benefits of doing a full project as opposed to doing it in multiple phases. And we'll also look at the different type of procurement options. And then we'll go into a quick question and answer session. So as you can see here on some of these photos, these are photos of the existing equipment up on top of this building here. Basically, those two, that unit you see on the upper left, it's probably the size of a small bus, and there's about 10 of those. And then on the far right bottom corner, those are two of your major boilers. They're about in the 2 million BTU range, and those are what provide the heating for comfort. And as you can see, those two are in really bad shape. We actually had to red tag them and shut them down. So again, I'll go through the equipment conditions. The equipment is undersized that we found out. We brought in an engineer, did a study, and the equipment up there doesn't meet the original design for some reason. There was the equipment that was installed up in this roof is up to 15% smaller than what should have been here. Our proposal includes upgrading those units to meet the original design. The equipment up there is pretty old, and it's running pretty inefficient. The equipment is not running as designed due to multiple needed repairs and an outdated control system. Multiple repairs are required. We got economizers, which brings in the outside air in their air quality. There's a lot of mortars, displays on all this equipment that's really outdated and it is in need of either repair or replacement. The equipment past life expectancy, and that comes through ASHRAE, and I'll kind of go into that on the next slide. And then the replacement of parts and availability. We're having a harder time getting parts for the repairs. Some of these parts are obsolete now. We can't get them. Other parts, when we do order, there's tremendous lead times causing us to leave equipment down for extended periods of time. And again, and then also there's no warranty of this equipment, so obviously all the repairs are being absorbed by the county. The other one, the last one, is the HVAC and control system, which we're also proposing to change. The system is not running on any type of schedule, so basically it's running 24/7, spending excessive electricity. We have areas that are either too hot, too cold, and it's affecting the comfort of the employees here. So I'll jump into life expectancy of the equipment. This graph here comes from ASHRAE, and they're the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. And they put out a chart estimating what the life expectancy of this equipment is. And if you can see in the block here, this type of equipment is rated at 15 years. And the equipment is 2005, and it's been operating since about 2006. So it is already past the life expectancy that ASHRAE, it dictates. And again, so it's been running over 15 years. The other thing is, usually ASHRAE estimates a runtime of between 8 and 12 hours, and we've noticed that some of this equipment has been running 24/7 for years. The other thing that's really affecting this project and will in the future, and most likely needs to address now, there's a new Department of Energy standard that's coming into play here, and on January the 1st, 2023, the U.S. Department of Energy, a new minimum efficiency standards will go into effect, and the changes will include having equipment with higher efficiencies for newly manufactured residential and commercial equipment. So what happens, more or less, the Department of Energy every 6 years goes out and reviews the energy use of certain systems, and in an ongoing effort to reduce overall energy consumption, they determine if there's new guidelines that need to be implemented, and obviously here in 2023 there will be some, again, forcing the equipment to be at a higher efficiency. In our proposal, we are meeting the new DOE 2023 requirements for the equipment that we would be installing. Here we'll discuss real quick what the benefits are of doing this project as a whole project instead of piecemealing it or doing it in phases. Obviously, the economies of scale. Like I mentioned, this equipment is the size of small buses. So you can imagine that the crane that would be needed to lift this equipment is enormous. And for to be bringing in a crane every time and doing one unit at a time it's not cost effective. It would overrun any type of, it will offset any type of cost as far as doing it all in one instead of piecemealing them. Obviously, you do have IT equipment here. That IT equipment is also in fairly bad shape, and there, at any time, that equipment can go down and hopefully, jeopardize losing your data that you have here. By doing this project also all at once, we can avoid, HVAC emergencies that might lead to closing services to the community and employee discomfort. So we do it all at once, it gets fixed. Instead, we'll be having to treat this as emergencies. One unit would fail, the lead times on this equipment, 8-9 months. You'd have to probably relocate people. It just causes a lot more problems, temporary cooling. So there's a lot to look at in comparing doing this project all at once as, again, to doing it in phases. Again, and I already did mention, doing this project on an emergency basis will increase the cost, take longer, and the other thing, you might have to pay for temporary cooling while the repairs are done. And then last and final is, will the county have the capital available when these emergencies occur? We'll look into procurement processes available. We currently have a contract with Doña Ana. It's a contract 15-179. We've done other projects similar to this under piggybacking off of your contract. There's also some statewide, pricing agreements, and there's the GSA contract that we can also utilize. And right now, there's ARPA funding available. This project was created for this type of project using ARPA funds. It meets all the criteria. It improves indoor air quality for your facility. And again, ARPA funds would be able to be used. So the other last thing I put here is no need for request for proposal. There's the contracts that we can use or the pricing agreements we can sole source and avoid the bid process if necessary. Again, here, we've partnered with Doña Ana on multiple projects, so this would be another great project here. By partnering with Trane, we will deliver the needed solutions to the county. We are aware of the needs, and we've brought in already some engineers. We've done studies and surveys, and we know what this building needs. Together, we'll increase the reliability and decrease the risk, and we'll avoid HVAC emergencies and increase costs associated with that. And most important, we have complete collaboration with the county. So at this time, I would humbly request approval of this project. And I can go into question, answer if needed here.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Allens?
This may not be a question that you can answer, maybe Andy can. Have there been any IT malfunctions because servers were improperly cooled?
Yes, there has. But Andy, they've been a little bit proactive. They have purchased some temporary units that they can, quickly get into the room and keep it cool in the meantime. It's not the optimal condition for being able to cool your IT room, but they do have basically a backup system of little portable units that they can drag in there and keep your IT equipment from going down. But it has happened multiple times already.
Frequently?
No.
Chair Sanchez, Commissioner Allens, we've had it happen a couple of times probably in my first or second year here. And we took some initiatives on the top of the building to cut up some holes so that we could get more circulation in there. And then we replaced some units there, but we need to replace them with the more specialized units that are specific to that. But we haven't had anything go down here at the government center for probably at least 18 months or more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Additional questions for Mr. Hernandez?
Mr. Macias, is this a budgeted item?
The request is to take it out of the remaining uncommitted funds in ARPA. Those funds total approximately $7.5 million. If there is a commitment by the commission to this project, that'll reduce down the remaining ARPA funds to about $3.5 million.
Is ARPA broad enough to cover this expenditure?
The fact that it's a heating and air conditioning project that would, in principle, improve the circulation of air throughout the building, that part of the project certainly would be eligible under ARPA. But please remember, there is $10 million out of the $42 million that the county received the use of it is at the discretion of the governing body of the county. So yes, this project can be paid out of ARPA funds, and there are sufficient uncommitted funds to cover the cost of the project.
How long will it take to complete the project from beginning to end if we don't phase it in?
Right now with supply chain issues, we're looking at about a 6 to 7 month lead time on the physical equipment. And at that time, once it comes in, we're estimating we could probably get it taken care of in 12 months.
How many months?
12 months, 1 year. Obviously, we have to coordinate with facilities and try and avoid as much interruption to the daily function of the building.
To what extent would your work be disruptive to ongoing operations?
We definitely, when we're replacing one of the units, like I said, these are pretty big units, so they do handle a pretty large area. So we would need to coordinate with facilities, Andy and his team, and maybe move some people around while we're replacing that one particular unit. We're estimating a unit would take maybe about a week, and that's at worst case scenario to actually replace one unit and then go to the next. We're also replacing the control system, which will improve the comfort of the individual areas. There's about 200 of these boxes that are all around the building. They open and close some dampers to either bring in cold or hot air. We're also going to be upgrading those components. They're located around inside the ceiling grids and stuff. Those, basically takes about half an hour to get in there and move on, so forth.
How many personnel will you be using to complete this work?
We'd have quite a bit of different trades, electricians, our controls technicians that do the HVAC control systems. Well, how many? I'd say at any particular time, 10 people.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, Commissioner Chaparro, please go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm just thinking about it, like with my air conditioner and appliances, when you say it's past its life expectancy, I understand that, but my refrigerator is 5 years past its life expectancy and it's still functioning very well. So let's say we don't do anything. In your estimation, how many more years of use can we get out of these units before they have to be replaced completely?
Currently, right now, Ms. Chaparro, currently, right now, a lot of the units are in need of major repairs. And we're talking in the tens or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've manipulated some of the components. Indoor air quality is really important right now, obviously, as we all know. And we've manipulated these units to be able to bring manually to bring in the dedicated outside air required by law. So physically, those things are manipulated. We've been experiencing multiple failures. I mean, I'm seeing that it's not a matter of, oh, how long will they run? It's a matter of when they're going to go down. And like I said, trying to get components for these is going to get harder and harder and harder. And again, the biggest concern I would have that if you do have a failure, it takes 8 months to bring one of these units in. So you have a catastrophic failure on one of these things, you're gonna be out of cooling for a large area for a long period of time.
And I have another question, please.
Yes.
And you alluded to the fact that some of these units have been used 24/7, 7 days a week for years. How did we not know about that?
It's not that you didn't know, it's just the way the facility was being run. Okay.
Chair Sanchez, Commissioner Chaparro, we are aware of that. The Sheriff's Department operates 24/7. So we are aware that of the systems that do operate 24/7. It's all computerized, and so we're able to recognize when they're operating and when we set them, evenings, weekends, to shut down or to bring the temperatures in the different direction that we need them to. And then the computer lets us know when there's problems, and it's constantly notifying us. It's a constant notification, a damper's opening, a damper's closing, et cetera, et cetera. So we're completely aware of how our systems operate. The crack units, the specialized units that cool our IT above you here, we have a IT server room. And those crack units are running 24/7 to keep that equipment cool. Because if that equipment stops cooling that room, we end up with some major problems, which we've experienced as well at MIRVDA. And so we are fully aware of what our systems is doing. And I'm gonna state one more thing. You know, George is a trained representative. He's telling you the critical stage that our units are at, and I am full agreement with that. But I'll give you a more answer, me from a facilities person and from somebody that's understands the field very well. You know, we could probably see these units run for another 2 or 3 years. But again, ordering parts when the HR department goes down or the county manager side of the building goes down, and then I have constant complaints, as I did on Friday when I was off, you know, getting calls all afternoon that, you know, the temperature was 78 degrees. We need to make sure that we can not have an issue where the part goes down and we can't get it for 3 or 4 months. So.
Well, thank you for clarifying that, Andy.
Thank you.
I wasn't understanding why some of the systems were running 24/7. So now that you've clarified it, yes, it makes sense, IT and the Sheriff's Department. And I know that County Manager Macias has a window that he can open.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chaparro. I did have a couple questions, I know, for Mr. Hernandez and then probably for Andy or Mr. Macias. Mr. Hernandez, I know one of the things that we had discussed prior to, let me preface this by saying, I know one of the reasons this project was on the agenda was working with Commissioner Reynolds. We were trying to identify projects similar to what had been done at the detention center for energy and for trying to find energy savings at the same time. How do we look with the current influx of monies through ARPA so that we're setting up our resources or our facilities in the county to continue to be set up for the future. So one of the questions, I know we discussed this, with doing one phase was minimizing mobilization of cranes because of the cost. But I think like you mentioned, this is going to be, such large units, you're going to have multiple mobilizations anyways. So is there any way in which to optimize or continue to further reduce those costs in such a way? Because I think this cost, the 4.4 million, was over 30% higher from, I know what we were looking at about a month ago, and knowing those weren't fully updated numbers, but 30%'s pretty significant. We were going from, I think, 3.6 million now, or 3.5 million to 4.4 million. So is there any other ways we can address the cost here? Because that's almost $1 million more that we're looking at.
Yeah, Chair, you know, we did look at every possibility. I mean, we are minimizing the amount of mobilization, demobilization. Again, you know, unfortunately, we were getting hit every month with tremendous, you know, inflation increases, not just only on our equipment, but, you know, cost of raw material, cost of labor, and, you know.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Segovia, I don't know if you might be able to address this. Is there any, I know this was through a state, these quotes are through the state program. Is there any other, I know we had discussed previously, instead of the energy efficiency program, we were going to possibly look to source these out individually, or not individually, but outside of the program, the Energy Savings Guarantee Program. Is there any opportunity that we think that that we might find some favorable pricing across the market if we were to put this out for bid?
Chair Sanchez, you can put it out to bid, and that if that's the direction that you give me, then that's the direction we'll take. But I've done a lot of research on all of this, and obviously my years of experience. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I'm a general contractor. I'm a licensed contractor. I've worked in the architectural and engineering field for many years. And so I'm very familiar with the way the systems operate and work. And on my recent research for this particular project, there is other opportunities. I could go out and purchase a different piece of equipment now Train manufactures a lot of equipment for a lot of other organizations or companies. American Standard is built by Train. So it's just not the Train product, but they have others. There's other products there's a product out there called Carrier. There's a product called Coleman. I'm looking for something that's going to last. It's something that's going to be dependable. We can look at other systems, and if we do, we can probably find a cheaper system, but then we're going to have the maintenance, we're going to have the lack of material, the lack of equipment to fix it. Train has been with us for, like you said, probably 19, 20 years, and so we're very dependent on their expertise in assisting us on maintaining those systems. I have 2 HVAC technicians, and that's exactly what they are. They are technicians. They're able to replace motors and pumps. When we get into the specialized part of it, then we rely on Train and what they bring to the table. So I'm not only looking at it from replacing the equipment, but I'm also looking at it from the support. When we run into an emergency, I have them here within an hour. I don't have that ability with others at this time, but I'm more than happy to take whatever lead you want to give me. Will we save a lot? I just bought a home unit, bought a Train, 858, or it was 3,858. The American Standard version was 3,700, and the Coleman product was about $300 less. So obviously my investment for $300 is going to last me a lot more. I'm not going to have to worry about the servicing of that equipment because finding somebody to fix certain equipment is not always there. So I looked at a lot of the different things on this, and this is where I was the most comfortable. But RFP is always an option. And if that's the direction that you want me to take it, then we can definitely head in that direction for a lower price.
And I just, like I said, I mean, this is a pretty significant investment, and I think when we have the monies, I'd feel comfortable doing it now rather than trying to possibly look at taking out of reserves in the future when then we're absolutely forced to do it. I just want to make sure that this is the most prudent decision at this point with the monies that we have. And I just want to make sure because of that cost increase. I know that's what we're seeing across the market, but I just want to make sure that, from your perspective, like I said, exactly like for the reasons you said, you've been looking at the facilities, trying to understand what is the best opportunity for us to ensure that this is the right investment for the county to be set up for 15, 20 years from now.
Well, Chair Sanchez, I'm open to whatever direction you want to take, but I just, I did try to solicit another quote early on when we started this project, which was, we've been on this for over a year now, probably 18 months. I did try to solicit another bid to try to do the public health building, and I was, promised that they would be there to give me the quote, promised it, and they never delivered. So I tried another company besides this other company, and we use this other company for other projects across the county in the community centers, but they're more small scale. They just didn't want to get into the bigger scale work. And so then I did try another company out of El Paso, but again, I was unsuccessful in getting a quotation from them to do that project.
And I think, like you had mentioned, Coleman, they're owned by York, who's owned by Johnson Controls, so they're large companies as well. Did we look on that large scale? We're talking, Train is a large company. Have we looked at the major offices for Johnson Controls, Carrier, et cetera?
I have in the past. This particular project, I just did the research on the units, what they cost. I pushed these guys to get the price down just as I did at Public Health. And I just looking at the market, I felt like we're right within reason. Yeah, it's a little more expensive. Trust me, I know $4.4 million investment is a huge investment, but I did do research on it to make sure that we were getting the best price we could. So they know already that they need to come in with the lowest price that they can on this equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Andy.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Thank you. I missed a part of the presentation because I stepped out for a few seconds. Andy, if we went through the RFP process, how much would that delay this?
Chair Sanchez, Commissioner Chaparro, It's going to delay it, in my estimation, a few months. And we're going to see price increases. So again, my opinion, we're going to be back to this price, even if it's the lowest price. Because right now, what I'm being told and what I'm seeing as I'm working throughout the county on various projects is the sooner I tie in, the sooner that I'm able to get those components at that price. The increase right now on their equipment is looking at 8 to 9% a month increases. So it's very substantial. If we hit a recession, are we going to see lower prices? Are we going to get to a point where we're at lower prices? It's hard to say if we wait another year that the market doesn't decrease and then we see lower prices. That's a very, very hard thing for me to look at. But to answer your question, yes, it's going to take us about 3 months, I think, in delay to look at the RFPs. And quite frankly, I don't have a problem with doing an RFP. My problem is, who am I going to get? Because in my experiences in a couple of projects over the last few years, we've RFP'd, and then I end up with the worst contractor in the world. A good example for me right now is Dolores Wright. You know, there was only one bidder, and I'm stuck with them. And trust me, my life isn't easy right now with that contractor, but we'll get through it. And it's going to take a little while, but we'll get through it. It's just RFP lends itself to us not necessarily getting the best bona fide bid. And that's the part that concerns me with RFP now. If there's language that we can install in there, of course, I'm more than happy to take that route.
Thank you. I'm still thinking about that response, but thank you for
So
that.
3 months, I mean, I went off on a tangent a little bit, but 3 months. It'll take us about 3 months. We have to put the documents together, and then we need to put it out to the public. And depending on how many days we give it, then we open the bids, then we make that decision, and then we got to go through the process of getting it approved through the board.
Thank you. And I think that's something that perhaps my fellow commissioners might just keep in mind, because this is a substantial amount of money. And if within the process, you know, maybe the price goes up or down, we don't know. Nobody can guess that right now. And maybe Trane is the only bid that we will receive, but to have that option for taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chaparro. Any other input, questions? Commissioner Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this has been a great discussion. I think one thing I remember, and I keep thinking and going back to, is that we're talking about ARPA funds, and those funds are going to expire in 2025. If we have the funds now, I can't guarantee you we're going to get them from the state if we don't use them now. I mean, it's money that can help us invest in something that's going to last 20 years. So just based on that risk alone and the fact that we did have better numbers 8 months ago, but things have changed. And the way things look right now, I can't promise, or I don't believe things are going to get better for a while. And the money that we have to use for this right now will expire. That's my biggest concern. So maybe we're paying 20, 30% more. If we'd have pulled the trigger a year ago, we wouldn't be doing that. But if we wait another year, are we going to pay another 30% and use money that we don't have, or lose the opportunity to use money, this free money that we got that we can use for this? So anyway, I'm in favor mainly because all these things we've talked about, they're all possibilities. The only thing I know that we've got solid is we have the money, we have the contract, we know what needs to be done, we avoid the risk, and we move on to something else that's more important later. That's just my feeling. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Murillo.
As position as a mayor for the city of Anthony, we're having the same issues of RFP. So we usually go with a CS contractor with the state because some of the material takes, a year to get? We had a machinery that we had to wait about 18 months to get a piece. It was just a chip to be able to get the machinery going. So I approve. I mean, I concur with Commissioner Reynolds on this. It's just really hard right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther Murillo. Any other questions or input? Any public input? Well, we have a motion and a second before us on agenda item number 4. There's no other questions or input at this time. Randy, I'll ask you to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
No.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, so guys, it's 11:13 a.m. I'll ask if there's no objections that we'll take a 10-minute or take a 10-minute break. We can reconvene, or 12 minutes at 11:25. Okay.
Yes.
it's Lynn. Yes, sir. Hey, listen, somehow that person that you recommended sent me a message and it got erased.
I've got a full one. I've got my full one.
I saw two on yours and I said,
Next time I go get one, I'll
okay. Well, if me, I took it.
All righty, guys. It's 11:27 a.m. We will reconvene this meeting. So we're on to now on agenda item number 5, which is our year-end budget revision and budget resolution for fiscal year 2022 budget. Ms. Dawood.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Asma Dawood, Financial Services Director. Today, I would be presenting the FY22 year-end budget adjustments. We ended our fiscal year on 30th June. We are in the process of closing our books. These adjustments are in order to correctly post money in the correct funds and help reconcile for accounting purposes. In 2 weeks' time, I would be presenting the last quarter financial updates to the board which would show how we did throughout the fiscal year. We have 10 adjustments today. 8 of them are related to gross receipt taxes, which came in higher than budgeted, so we are making adjustments to the correct account. The first one is the 116th gross receipt tax. We had budgeted 2.86 million for FY22. We received 3.47 million. So the difference was 608,697, and we are making that adjustment. Throughout these budget revisions, you would see adjustments to GRT admin fee. This is a 3% fee that New Mexico Tax and Revenue charges us for collecting and distributing the GRTs. So as the GRTs were higher, the admin fee budget has also increased, and we would be doing it for different categories. Based on the resolution for the 116 GRT, it is distributed to DASO and fire funds. The second entry that we have is for hold harmless GRT. We had budgeted at 15.89 million. We received 19.7 million. The difference, 3.812 million, is being adjusted. Again, we are increasing the GRT admin fee, and based on the resolution, the money goes to DASO and detention for salary and operations and for hold harmless capital projects. The environmental GRT was budgeted at 1.14 million. We received 1.7 million. The difference is 585,123. We are increasing that as well as adjusting the GRT admin fee. For all other gross receipt tax, our budget was 25.18 million. We received 30.8. The difference was 5.639 million. We are making this fifth entry to adjust the gross receipt tax and also increase our GRT admin fee expense. The fifth entry is for Spaceport GRT. This is a pass-through. The net impact to the county is 0. We had budgeted 10.45 million. We received 11.77. The difference is 1.32 million. So we are increasing the Spaceport GRT intercept, the payments to public school, and the GRT admin fee. Based on the resolution, 25% is distributed to school districts for Spaceport-related projects. In FY22, we paid Las Cruces Public School 2.426 million, Gadsden School District 1.289 million, and Hatch Valley 123,000. The sixth entry is for 116th Medicaid intercept. This is also a pass-through, and the net impact to the county is 0. We had budgeted 2.54 million. We received 3.65. The difference is 1.11 million, which we are adjusting. For Anthony Water and Sanitization GRT, the amount budgeted was $3,372. We received $4,089. The difference was $717 that we are increasing here. The eighth entry that we have is for the detention energy project debt service. The intercept started in FY22, so we are doing an adjustment for the revenue and the GRT admin fee amount to reflect the actual amount which was intercepted by New Mexico Finance Authority for paying the NMFA detention energy infrastructure project loan. So this project would continue for till 2041, and monthly payments are about $20,000. The next adjustment that we have is for the 1974 drinking water loan. So the payment for FY21 posted in July, and this year we paid the FY22 payment, which resulted in 2 payments in one fiscal year. So we are adjusting the budget by $82,711. This is related to the cleanup of Griggs Walnut Superfund site. And the last entry that we have is for emergency rental assistance cash transfer. This is for the administrative costs. We are transferring $366,715 from to the general fund. So these were the 10 year-end budget revisions that we had. As I mentioned, on July 26th, I would be coming before the board to present the last quarter financials for FY22 and also our next year FY23's fiscal budget, final budget for approval. Please let me know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dawood. Are there any questions on the presentation? All right. Seeing a bunch of shaking heads. So in that case, I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve agenda item number 5.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Chaparro,
Second.
seconded by Vice Chair Murillo. Is there any last comments or public input? Hearing none. Brandy, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
That item has a resolution number. The number is 2022-39.
Thank you, Brandy. Okay, we're on agenda item number 6, which is resolution adopting the 2024-2028 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, or ICIP. I will, just to begin with this item, I know originally when this agenda was planned, we were anticipating to be starting this discussion a little sooner than 11:35. I know I'm open to, I know Judge Arrieta is here and has been waiting to speak with us. And so I didn't know, do we want to continue on with this item? Do we want to look to push this possibly to next week or in 2 weeks to our next BOCC meeting? Just wanted to get an idea of the will of the commission. I know there was, my hope of this discussion, I think as we discuss this is our kind of setting up what are our priorities for the next 3 to 5 years, obviously for the next year, but I think this is kind of in our way, our opportunity as a BOCC to set our agenda and our vision for the county for the short-term future. So I just wanted to open it up and see, do we want to continue on with discussion? Is there concerns with what's been provided? Any questions?
Continue. On my side, my part.
Okay, Vice Chair Murillo says continue.
Mr. Chairman, just so that we can distinguish, we have to have the ICIP list just as part of the legislative process. I mean, if you want to have a dialogue in terms of how everything fits in over the next 3 to 5 years, that's one thing. But just from a practical perspective, we have to be submitting an ICIP list. I would like for there to be, we did share this as early as we could. We'd like to get a little bit of feedback in terms of just from a practical perspective, anything outside of the top 10, I mean, that's what we're really pushing. Anything outside of the top 10 is potential funding because an individual legislator determines that there's some value in pursuing that. The top 10 are there because most of them already have substantial money, and we're trying to close the gap out of this next legislative session. So I hope that we can distinguish between the need to have a list submitted to DFA, which is a requirement, and that time frame is coming up relatively soon, and then separating it into perhaps another discussion related to encompassing other areas of priority for the commission that isn't just restricted to the capital improvement projects. So we would like to get a little bit of feedback. And we did advertise the fact that we were doing ICIP today, and I can assure you, we don't have one member of the public here to give any kind of additional input.
I think the concern isn't so much, I mean, obviously we'd love to have public input and public participation in this. I think I want to make sure that the commission feels like there's the freedom and the time to dig in and understand the projects. And I think that was why originally when we talked about this in our the second meeting in June, that we would probably want this in a work session, was because we didn't want other agenda items to push. And I think that was the concern, is let's just dig into our ICIP and review it. And I think, like I said, I mean, we're here at 11:30. My suggestion is, if we were to do this next week for just a work session, would that cause issue with timing or we approve it in its own session? Would that cause an issue with timing with DFA?
Probably not.
Okay. Commissioner Reynolds, I don't know. Sorry? I look at some of the items that are here that are, like I said, I mean, I do have questions for those that are outside of the top 10. I mean, probably number 23 is radios for public safety.
And again, Mr. Chairman.
That's been on there for a long time, and I understand the concern is that we're trying to set up ICIP for just specifically the 2023 legislative session. But I would envision this to be an opportunity, and I understand that comes into that discussion. But I think having just when I see the file sent out that says 2024 to 2028 ICIP, I would prefer that this ICIP reflect truly what is that 4-year plan. And all that input would come into discussion, or would come into the discussion and understanding of why we have top 10. What are our next ones after that?
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, could we at least try to make a little bit of headway here to see, so that we can get a little bit of better direction and we may be able to answer relatively quickly? Because part of what this was going to be just was a project-by-project presentation. I'm sure in some of these cases, the commission is quite familiar with some of the projects. We could bypass that and go directly to questions that the commission has.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree with you that last month, we actually talked about having a work session to go over this so we wouldn't be rushed, and we could have some back and forth interaction with everybody about these projects. I'm still in favor of, if we have the time, of actually scheduling a work session where we won't be pushed and thinking more about lunch and less about getting these things, discussed. So I'm happy to meet any day you choose and try to route my schedule in order to be here to have a real discussion about each one of these items as we have questions about. Because, yes, I've seen this, and I recognize a lot of these things, and I think I know what my priorities are, and I think I know what some of your priorities are, but I don't know the full scope and breadth of what we're trying to accomplish with some of these long-term either. And I don't think this is something we visited in the 4 years I've been here. So I would like to have a little more time to sit down and talk to the departments and understand why these are their priorities and what we're trying to accomplish as a goal for the whole county. So I'm on the same page as you.
Mr. Chairman, one other option is for the commission to recess for lunch and come back this afternoon and work on the project.
Mr. Chair, if I may. I agree with you, Commissioner, you and Commissioner Reynolds. And if we can push this to answer questions that we may have, because we're going to be requesting money that may impact our county for the next couple of 3 years. And so I think if anyone has questions, then they should be answered. And I thank Judge Arrieta for being here. I know he's been waiting all morning. But I don't know if we're able to address what he's ready to present and then move into a work session on another day. But whatever my colleagues would like.
I think Mr. Macias made the idea of recessing, but if we were to recess this to say Thursday or Friday morning or afternoon, then we would not be subject to the 72-hour Open Meetings Act. Is that correct?
You know, it's on this agenda, so if you recess it to a certain date, I guess there's an argument that you've given the notice. The preference would be is that we schedule it as a special meeting, and that with that, we would have the 72-hour requirement.
And that's why I'm wondering, if we were to say, if we can agree on a time that we could recess this to, then all we have to do, is my understanding, is post it online, post it on the doors, and we'd still be in compliance because we would not be adjourning this meeting.
If you're actually going to do that, I'd ask that you wait until the 19th, which is the following Tuesday.
Why would that be?
Because I'm not, I think I've already shared with you
Okay.
my unavailability.
And Mr. Chair, on the 19th, there is a hearing in court that Mr. Macias has been subpoenaed to, that I will be at as well in the afternoon on Tuesday, the 19th.
But we could convene at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Mr. Chair, my calendar's open on July 19th at 9 a.m. until 3:30.
Yeah, mine too.
If that helps.
I can make that work.
I mean, I could do the 19th at 9 a.m. as well.
Okay, let's do that.
I don't know, Commissioner Allens or Vice Chair Murillo, is there any chance you'd be able to do that?
I'm fine.
Before we do that, though, I did want to give, Judge Arrieta, I know you're here, so like I said, I want to invite you up and at least provide some input, because I know you've, to clear your schedule to be here in the morning is quite the task, so.
And I only need about 10 minutes.
That's fine.
Thank you very much for your patience and consideration. And folks, good morning, Chair Sanchez, Commissioners. You all know who I am. I'm Manuel Arrieta. I'm the Chief Judge for the Third Judicial District Court, which encompasses the entirety of the county. It also, of course, includes the city. Part of my court is also magistrate court and district court.
Mr. Chair, sorry, point of order.
Yes.
I'm asking, Mr. Chair, since he's not on the agenda, is this a public comment, or since it's not an agenda item, are we not allowed to interact with him?
No, it is an agenda item. It's the ICIP.
It's the
That's why
ICIP.
he's here to address the item on the ICIP.
Number 2, right here.
Okay.
Yes. So you haven't voted to postpone the ICIP.
Okay, so if that's the case, then don't we have to have a motion to approve this before he can actually present?
Mr. Chair, you can either take his input on this. I mean, there is a resolution attached to it, but you can either do a motion to approve it and then it gets continued on to next week. If it's just as a work session, I mean, depending on how we set up that agenda item to approve it or not, but you can take the input from him at this point in time, whether you have the motion or not.
Okay.
With or without discussion?
With or without discussion. You're allowed to discuss it. On the agenda item is the ICIP. And this is part of the ICIP. I believe it's number 6. Number two on the ICIP list. So he's one of the individuals that can provide the information as to that particular project. So I think it's appropriate to hear from him.
Mr. Chair, Judge Arrieta, I apologize for the interruption, sir.
No problem.
Please continue, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
We all have to follow rules. All right. Thank you. And why I'm here is part of it is the ICPA. Part of it is because I'm here to talk about community concerns. It's kind of enlightening for me to sit here and listen to people talk and come to you with problems or issues, one of which we heard today was elections. I am the presiding election judge for the Third Judicial District. I sit in every one of the elections. Fortunately, nobody raised my name, and the good county clerk here got all of the comments. But in that vein, what I'm here to talk about is the Third Judicial District Court. Whatever happens in this county and the city happens in our district. So if issues are being brought to you, they're issues that we eventually have to resolve. I've heard a lot from the community, from the mayor, from all sorts of individuals talk about these concerns. These concerns range from the rise in crime, especially during COVID, problems with the mental health population, concerns with businesses and individuals, what's happening to their businesses or neighborhoods because of drugs, because of crime, because of homelessness. You've all heard about the rise in domestic violence, the rise in child abuse, child neglect. You've heard about the issues that adolescents have in school with drugs, with parents, with the law. You've heard about concerns about drought, water scarcity, issues like that. These are all issues that are coming to you from your constituents, and they end up coming into the courts. The courts deal with all these problems. I want you to know that we handle all the criminal cases in the county. Whether it comes to magistrate or district court, we make decisions on whether or not we should release, detain, or find someone culpable. We have 4 dockets that handle mental health. We have adult drug court, we have assisted outpatient treatment, which is done in conjunction with this county. This county is the one supporting AOT. We have juvenile mental health. We have competency hearings for criminal defendants, and we have involuntary commitments. So the courts are doing a lot about mental health. We have treatment courts. We have adult drug court, juvenile drug court, family reunification, and we also are starting up a mental health court. So we're doing something about the mental health issues. We have dockets to handle domestic violence, emergency orders of protection. I was up till 3 o'clock last night or this morning answering a call on emergency order of protection. We handle child abuse, child neglect cases. We handle evictions, foreclosures. We handle water issues. We handle all these issues that you're hearing about every time you open the newspaper. Bottom line is that we're tied hand in hand with the county and with the city on all these issues. But folks, I want you to know that the courts are now limited. We finally got a new judgeship 2 years ago after 14 years of not having a judge. During those 14 years, the population increased by about 30,000. National Center of State Courts indicates that for every 12,000 added, you've got to get a new judge because of the caseload. Folks, we need a new judge. We've been in the same building since 1996. We've had that building expanded. I think 2005, it added 1 courtroom. Right now, we can't fit any more judges or staff in our court. As a consequence, we're rotating 9 courtrooms among 9 judges, 2 hearing officers, 4 treatment courts, the jury selections, the grand juries. We are rotating cross-training employees between magistrate court and district court, moving them to where they're most needed and where we can fit them. We have no offices for a new judge or their supporting staff. We cannot offer new services, nor can we expand existing services if we can't get more people and more room in there. These issues that I'm describing to you are not going to go away. In fact, they're going to increase. But as I've said, these issues aren't the court issues. They're the county issues. They're the city issues, the city of Anthony, city of Hatch, city of Sunland Park, Chaparral. We deal with them routinely, as I do with election law, as I do as a water judge, as I will with the upcoming climate change certification that we're going to have to deal with climate change issues. Is that going to affect this county? Take a look at the Texas versus New Mexico lawsuit. We're going to end up with less water. What I'm telling you folks is that the court expansion is on ICIP number 2. I'm not asking you to support it because I think you will. What I'm asking you to do is promote it actively, work with the county, work with us, the courts, to make sure that we get an expansion on the 3rd Judicial Building, to bring in more judges, more support staff, so we can do more of this work in these areas, because we're all partners in it. If it comes to you, it's going to come to us. So please actively support this by going out to the legislators, whoever you talk to, and say, you know, we've got to build the services in this county to address the issues that are being raised by our constituents. And we can only do it if we expand the court. That's all I wanted to ask you. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Judge Arrieta. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
not specifically a question for Judge Arrieta, but more a comment. I am there very often, and I am very much aware of the space that is badly needed, not only for the judges, but for the staff. I don't know where you're putting people, quite frankly. I see them coming out to the courtroom, Judge, but I don't know where you're putting all those people because there's not sufficient room.
At this point, we're doubling up on offices, 2 employees per office when there used to be 1. We're rotating courts, as I've said. We're having some people with telework from the outside. That's helping a little bit, but that's not really the solution long term. We just need more building.
And I agree. What I'm specifically concerned about, fellow commissioners, is the jury trials that are happening down there because of the COVID rules. Only so many people are allowed in a certain amount of space. Yeah. And so you've run out of that space.
And that's a good point, Commissioner. During COVID, because we had 6-foot spacing requirement, the only way we could put a jury, lawyers, judges, and staff in there is we could only utilize 3 out of the 9 courtrooms because they were only big enough to sit a full jury. That's gone down to 3 feet spacing. We are accommodating more, but we're backlogged. People at the detention center, they know that. The county knows that. That raises liability issues. We're in it together.
Thank you, Commissioner Chaparro. And I know you actively, I think that was one of the questions you brought up when we discussed the design with Mr. Vigil at our last meeting was where does staff, where do the translators, or where are they going to be able to sit when in this design? So I can appreciate your advocacy, Commissioner Chaparro, especially being in your daily life. So thank you so much. Are there any other questions for Judge Arrieta?
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Murillo.
So on the ICIP, the $9 million, that is the last phase. That money is to complete the project. Is that correct?
That money would be, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, that money is the totality to build 2 additional courtrooms plus all of the administrative support. So that is the maximum amount that's necessary to do the total project. It is being designed in a way that it can be probably broken down into 2 phases.
Okay. And Mr. Macias, what if we introduce this into legislative and they say no, or they'll just give us half of it? Where will we get the other funding from?
We have a constitutional requirement to provide housing to the court, to the district court. So the only other option would be go into the reserves of the county.
Reserves in the county. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Judge Arrieta. There's a couple of things you said. I probably didn't hear it correctly. You say you currently have 9 judges?
We have 9 judges, yes, sir.
Okay. You also mentioned something about the magistrate court. Does that include the magistrate judges? It doesn't, does it?
No, it doesn't. We have 7 magistrate judges, 15 total.
Okay. Something you said that I think is really kind of key here, and you said that you can only use 3 out of the 9 courtrooms because of COVID restrictions.
Right.
And then, of course, you have the problems with the interpreters not having a good place to sit close to the jury box as well. So if we go and add 2 more courts to expand your ability to have 9 judges, how is that going to relieve your problem of only being able to use 3 courtrooms because of COVID?
Yes, thank you for the question. It used to be we could only use 3 courtrooms because of the 6 feet distance spacing.
Right.
That has been decreased by Supreme Court rule to 3 feet. So now we can utilize pretty much all of the courtrooms.
Okay.
We expect, hopefully, someday COVID will be done. We're all tired of this, and we'll all revert back to how it used to be, where we use fully all courtrooms that are available.
Okay. Now, I'm confused, and I would hope that you'll show up at our work session on Tuesday, because I have some questions about kind of some of the design process we talked about with this element when we were presented with it last week. One of those being is if we look at the total amount, we're only going to add the 2 courtrooms and the 2 staff. Shouldn't we have money to also go back and rework some of the courtrooms, again, to better accommodate interpreters and to better accommodate? I looked at some of the pictures, and it looks like your area for the audience is like almost about the same size as this area back here. And so I guess are we limiting the scope of the project because of we're trying to keep it as low as possible, or are we limiting the scope of the project because of the funds, or what? Because it appears to me that this facility may not even, we may be better off to look at a bigger project and consider moving the courts someplace else even.
Well, that's a very good question. I had the same comment that I made to Commissioner Chaparro. The addition of these new courtrooms will be similar to an old courtroom I had, which will be enough for a jury trial. We'll add 2 more courtrooms. That should take us probably another 5 years. That'll give us more time to talk about growth. Now, it's always a funding issue. We'd be happy if you give us 4 courtrooms, or, build the DA's office upstairs, and then we can move the DA out. The importance about this building, and I've thought about it, the issue of building a whole new courthouse. That's going to be very expensive. What we like about this site, it is a huge plex. In other words, we've got a lot of room to grow and add further annexes as we grow. We couldn't do that if we moved this building and we built a new building somewhere else. The advantage we have is we're very centralized. There's a lot of parking. We can move up. We can do parking that goes up. We can do a lot of things because you've got that pad. And that's the savings, I think, that the county will appreciate, rather than buying property in a brand new building at what it costs nowadays. I think Santa Fe was the last district court building that was completed about 5 or 6 years ago. That started off at $38 million.
Right.
They found there was a problem with the water being tainted underneath. $68 million later.
See, and I'm even considering the upgrades we really need to do to this building to bring us into the 21st century as well. I mean, in my opinion, we're ignoring all of that for an investment that's going to take us longer to pay off the 5-year, pay off the bonds required to do this than the 5 years of use you're going to get out of it. I guess so we'll be coming back to the well in 5 more years to expand it again, as I believe that our population is going to grow here if what this board is trying to accomplish is successful. And then we'll be back needing another couple of courtrooms. I guess I'm looking for a plan that says, and this is just me personally, I haven't talked to anybody else on this board about it, or Fernando or anyone else. I guess I'm more concerned about how we invest for the future, as opposed to saying, look, we've got 2 more judges we have to accommodate, and so let's throw money at it to get it done right now. I'm more interested in a long-term plan so we can calculate our expenses over the next, say, 10 to 20 years to really provide a solution for your problem. And in addition to that, I looked at the cost of this remodeling and this addition, and we're talking about over, I think I calculated roughly $550 a square foot to build this addition, which from the numbers I understand in this area for construction, that's almost twice of what most construction costs. So I've got some real concerns. Sure. This is not about you. It's not about what we're required to do. It's about how this project has actually been approached and what we're trying to accomplish with it. And so I'm afraid it's going to be difficult for me to personally support this until I understand a little bit more about what your long-term plan is and how we're going to satisfy your long-term needs rather than just the 5 years and the limited ability to use the courtrooms that we have now and limited staff that you already have, because we're not really addressing those with this plan.
Sure. What we need right now is quick, short-term resolution. 2 courtrooms would help us, I say, for another 5 years. When I say I want you folks to actively promote, I mean, let's go talk to the legislators, because that's where the answer is going to be. They're going to be able to provide $9 million and help the county build this annex. If we can do that, then we can talk about the future in a new building, in a new area, whatever it is that we need long-term for the next 5 years. But if we try and get a new building in here and we set it out to bond based on the current economic situation of this country and the world, it'll be 20 years before we get a new building. So I think a short term is probably more viable. And Commissioner, you raised some good questions. I'd like it to be a long-term solution, but it's a viability issue of where we are with financing and the economy.
Mr. Chair, Judge Arrieta, thank you. I'd still like for you, someone, whoever you're working with to do this, and Fernando, to look at kind of what is the next step, okay, to make sure that whatever investment we're making is at least leading us to a long-term solution to this problem. Even if we want to say, look, this is phase 1, let's get this done, let's fix the problem, I'm okay with that. I'd like to understand the vision for phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, so that we can start lobbying the legislature to say, look, maybe we get 9 million this year, maybe next year we need 20, maybe we need 40. But that's the best way I find to do this, is to not wait until 4 or 5 months before the legislature and say, look, we need 9 million. I'd like to say, look, we need 9 million now, and then we need another 20 million next year, so that they're prepared for that mentally, and they start to look at their budgeting process throughout the committee meetings over the whole year to determine where that money's going to come from before we end up in January and February trying to find the money. That's just me. That's not, nobody else agrees with me on this, and that's okay.
You raised some good points, and I'll certainly visit with the county on that issue. I can tell you this whole project started being discussed last year with the legislators. I tried to visit with each one of them, and to give you an example of where we fall in the priorities, they had something like $6.3 million in discretionary funds. The court got $150,000. That's less than 3%, which is why I think we all need to go out there and we need to talk to the legislators, the community.
That completely supports what my position is that if we wait to the last minute and don't have a good plan and a good strategy as to how we're going to use the assets over the next 10 to 15 years to really solve your problems, all your problems, we can't expect us to be able to relate that to the legislature in such a way that they can actually give us the money we need. That's a limitation of our process. It's not a limitation of your needs. It's not a limitation of the money. It's a limitation that our process is not set up in order to do this kind of planning.
Right.
And that's another reason why we need this work session, is to have these kind of discussions so we can try to work collectively to come up with some good ideas about what you really need. And maybe it's not 9 million, maybe it's 15 even this year, just to repair some of the core problems you have with your current existing building.
I'll try and be here on Tuesday. I think I've got to be in Santa Fe. I'll visit with the county manager, and if I can answer any of the questions, I'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
Chair.
Commissioner Sparrow.
Thank you. And just another comment. And I didn't mean to, maybe it came out incorrectly. All the courtrooms are being used at this time. However, they're not all being used for jury trials. People are going in for arraignments, for changes of plea, for child protective issues. There's all the judges are working very hard. All the courtrooms are open. It's just that for jury trials, the amount of people that can come in are limited, and there are not enough courtrooms right now. But what I did hear from Judge Arrieta is that once this phase is done, the ability to go onto a second story is available. Am I correct on that, Judge?
We've been talking about that, and we had discussed setting it up so there would be a second story. To keep it within a reasonable amount, we decided to go with just this layout but there certainly is room on this pad to create something that's 2 stories high. Some other date.
So then technically, we're really not looking at a 5-year expansion, but maybe if we have the ability to add on a second story to that annex, then we're looking at perhaps a 10-year, 12-year solution. Am I correct on that?
You're correct on that. If we were able to build up, or we actually had the second floor, we would be able to expand into that area for the next 10, 12 years.
And Judge, may I add, is the IT issue going to be resolved in that new annex?
It is. We've met with our IT folks, and they feel they can get this done, make the IT appropriate to have whatever needs we need for our services in there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allens?
Can you go to a 3rd story?
Can we go with a 3rd story?
That's my question. Can you?
We'll go with whatever stories you can help us build. You know, the commissioner raises a good question. We need to think about this long term. If we could get 3 stories, that'd be wonderful. I think we'd be set for more than 12 years. We'd be looking at 20 years down the road.
I guess my question is there a physical limitation to going to an additional story?
What I understood is that this can be engineered with the proper framing to support a 2nd story. We've got buildings here that are as tall as 10, 15 stories. I'm not an engineer, but I don't see any reason why it can't be built for 3 stories.
Mr. Chairman, the current planning is to maintain it and continue to go out with 1 story, and there's still plenty of room on the site to continue to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Allens. Thank you, Commissioner Chaparro and Reynolds. I did want to, although it doesn't specifically address this concern, I understand exactly what we're looking at. I just think this is, this commission had approved support for the legislation to get the state to pay for the funding to come out of the state for this. And I think every time we come back and we look at this on the ICIP, this is the single largest request in terms of money. No, and that's not a knock at all. I'm just pointing out it's 9% of our ICIP ask from our legislators for the full project understanding. And this isn't, the issue with the courts is not isolated to Doña Ana County. I mean, I'm sure the rest of the courts, given all of the latest restrictions, have led to the situation we're in, especially over the last 2 years where you all are playing catch up.
Right.
So I know, like I said, I think, I understand the urgency for this. I just wish our legislators, if they were listening, could understand that this is not specifically ICIP for Doña Ana County. This affects the whole state. And hamstringing us to have to put and figure out that this is where we want a priority to be kills us, because when I look at all the other projects on here, the flood control, the Board of Elections warehouse, the OEM, the South Central wastewater system, we're having to obviously we do it every year. We piecemeal things until we get enough money that we can build it. And I know, like I said, it's where this is very important. So I'm not trying, like I said, it's just one of those things that I wish our legislature would understand, just like they did with the spaceport. They love to turn their eyes away because it's not coming out of the state budget. But we're the ones that are having to pick up the slack from the state level here in the county. So I said I would hope that our state legislature could address that. But understand, I appreciate you coming in, Judge Arrieta, and explaining kind of the situation with what you're dealing with and what the importance of the expansion to the courts would be.
Thank you. And I appreciate everybody's time. I know we're probably into lunch or close to it. You folks have a good lunch. Thank you for listening to me. Feel free to pick up the phone anytime and call me. Can't talk to you about specific cases, but I can tell you about the overall health of the judicial system.
Just, Commissioner, or Mr. Chair, sorry, to Commissioner Chaparro's point, if we had a design and we decided to add another floor to the building right now, I actually took my church from 1 story to 3 stories myself. The added cost to my construction was less than 10%.
Yeah.
Okay, to extend the building. My point being is if we had the plan and said, yes, we really would like to have the second story, and we had that to compare to this, we might be able to do this for not 9 million. We might be able to do that second story for only another million right now. But without even having that in the plan, without having that in the discussion, it may be 3 million. The point is, it'll be a small fraction of what it would be to build another building, okay, or to go back and redo it later and take the roof off, put a new roof on. If we just raise the roof immediately and go ahead and apply for the story, then the per square foot cost goes down tremendously. And these are the things that I don't know that we've sufficiently reviewed or evaluated, and that's why I'm challenging you and county commissioner or county manager and this board to at least think about, so that if we say, look, here's our plan, we need the 9 million. Oh, by the way, legislation, if you got an extra 3, we can increase the year of usage here from 5 to 15 or 5 to 10. The point is, I'm not sure that you probably have.
Yes,
So,
we
okay.
have.
But what is the extra cost? Is it 10 million?
Exorbitant.
Well,
exorbitant. And they were here last week at the last meeting. They made the presentation. We should have had that discussion with them. That's why we did that presentation.
Yeah.
But a second floor was not the option. The option was to continue to phase out into what is still a considerable amount of space. And I think we're being unrealistic when we start talking about, that we can go to the legislature and ask them for more money. I don't think we heard Judge Arrieta. We went with a plan last year, 125,000 is what came out of it. So the likelihood of even coming out with anywhere near the 9 million, I'm sorry, we're having a meaningless discussion if we think that's going to happen. But if we could come up with half the cost, that's sure.
Absolutely, but at the end of the day, it hamstrings our finances. I think we're in a place where, in this county, that, you as county manager and the BOCC have made decisions that are fiscally responsible, where we have reserves in place. In the case we can absorb this. We've seen it through the roads initiatives, and so that have been able to take place. We've been able to do a lot with what we have, but it does frustrate me. Like, you're absolutely right. Where we come out with $150,000 on a $9 million project, it doesn't get us a whole lot down the road, and now we're having to. We're the ones here, Doña Ana County, having to pick up that tab because, again, the state doesn't, the state level. And like I said, that's where my frustration comes in, is I believe, like I said, we're not the only county that is seeing this issue. This is something that was supported by that resolution that we did to support the state picking up the court, or that obligation came from the Association of Counties. So I know that's not a local level, it's a larger level. It's obviously for another discussion,
Right.
but because we need to be ready for the growth, and then things just got exacerbated by the pandemic.
And we'll keep talking to our legislators. I think that's really a key.
Yeah.
And when we talk to them about front page stuff like crime, drug addiction, the homeless issue, those kind of things, hopefully they'll start listening. But that's why I want to bring you in, promote it actively, and be part of this team so we can get some relief.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Judge Arrieta.
All right.
So let me, Mr. Macias, Mr. Gooden, so do we need to make a motion to move this agenda item to next week, or do we just move on to the next item before we?
I would suggest that there is a motion to table this item until a meeting,
Okay.
a special meeting. We call, you use the word work session. They're basically special
Meeting,
meetings.
yep.
And for the 19th of July at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so if I'll entertain a motion to move or table agenda item number 6 to a date certain, July 19th at 9 a.m. If I can get a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Chaparro, seconded by Commissioner Reynolds to table this to a date certain. Any input? Public input?
Ask a question. Ask it of me.
I've got the departments are supposed to have their applications due by Friday. Are they going to want to change amounts and descriptions?
They're not going to
Okay. Brandy, would you call the roll on the motion to table to a date certain?
Commissioner Ellens?
No.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
No.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes. Okay, we'll take up this item July 19th at 9 a.m. Okay, we're on to agenda item number 7. It's correspondence. Is there any correspondence, Brandy?
Yes, there is one, Joshua Giron versus Doña Ana County.
Okay. All right, we had just one last item, which was convening closed session. I don't believe there's any updates to do that, so we will not be convening closed session. We've reached the end of our agenda. It's 12:19 a.m. So if there are no objections, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 12:19. Thank you.